I'd rather start recording now than later.
Yeah. So there. That's it.
Mm-hmm. And then when it's over, I just put end stream. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, okay, it's ready. Okay, this is ready. This is mine. This is mine. I need water. I got it. Yeah, but I left it on.
Huh?
I left it on.
Running,
I had
So
to
it's running,
turn it
right?
off 3 times.
but it's running.
It's running now.
Recording?
Yes.
Let's record.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Can't.
Ah, ik ben bijna. Piccolo is die dat niet.
Sign-in sheet.
Not sure. Washington. But,
Yeah, you can sit wherever.
okay, sounds good. And we didn't have water?
I brought some. I gave everybody
Okay.
some water.
Everybody just sit here. That's pretty
Because
good.
You need paper towels?
Starting recording. What's there too much? Except for.
People going to be sworn in.
Yes, I'm gonna swear them in,
Okay.
okay?
Right. And if it runs long, will there be a
Mira
break?
qué cochinada me hizo este señor.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit. I remember.
you'll be formally in the minutes. You don't have to sign in because you're part of the
Okay.
committee. Welcome to.
Welcome to the party. Good. Thank you for doing what you're doing.
And I guess people will be sworn in.
Okay.
So,
Rather than being sworn at.
oh, that might come later.
Can I sit next to you?
Yeah, it'd be fine. Maybe I have an attorney.
So who all is on this? There's you and me.
Veronica Garcia, who is a former trustee.
Who? What's his first?
She's
Oh,
Veronica.
Veronica Garcia.
There's Garcia.
Okay.
The marshal's on,
Okay.
and the mayor, and the judge.
Marshall. Russ. What's his last name?
Hernandez.
What's the marshal's name?
His name is Ben Escalante.
Ben?
Ben Escalante.
Okay.
A. S. Escalante.
Okay.
Escalante Park.
Yeah, okay. How you doing?
Hey, how are you?
Good. I'm Fred.
Fred Russell.
You
Nice
hadn't
to
met
see you, Russ.
Fred
Yeah.
before?
I think maybe once before.
Was it?
Yeah.
Sorry.
We have fancy
And,
books. Huh?
And somebody named
Thank you.
Elizabeth Ellis.
Okay. Oh, Liz Ellis?
You know her?
Yeah.
But you're kind of lost. I haven't seen you in ages. I'm fine.
Like the shirt. I'm Ben.
Hi, Ben. Fred Heinrich. Nice to meet you.
He's an attorney. He served as a substitute judge under Don Truman, the previous judge.
Yeah.
All right.
Liz Ellis, as in the former GC at
Yes.
MSU? Yeah. Okay. I know Liz. She's great.
You have to be in one of 7 spots.
How are you? I thought you were back there. How are you? You know Shirley? Yeah.
So I didn't recognize.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
You staying out of trouble? Or
Yeah,
stirring it,
unfortunately.
or stirring it up?
Yeah, no, I'm beyond the trouble days.
Been doing a lot of traveling still?
Yeah, we are traveling quite a bit.
Good. Good for you.
Some of the times it's good.
Turn that down.
Good, right?
Yeah, lately I've, a variety of circumstances ended up causing us to be gone. It seems like most of this year so far, but it's gonna calm down.
Well, that's a good
What have
thing.
you up to?
Just doing my thing.
Still at Sunland Park?
Still at Sunland.
Yeah.
They signed a contract to sell about 2.5 weeks ago.
Oh, yeah?
So, Stan died in 2018. So one of his sons, one of his daughters took over. And they're in Virginia. They have no ties to the place. So,
They were happy to get rid of it.
now we got to just get it to the closing table,
And
jump
so
through.
what'll happen to you then?
Good
You think you'll
question.
stay on or you don't have any idea?
I don't know.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Depends on, those are all good.
Yeah.
It's like, he's told me, he's like, I don't know what they're paying
We
you.
will wait for him necessary. So.
So, they had long since pulled out.
I shouldn't say this a little out of school, but if Stan knew how that had all played out, he would have been turned over his grave.
Really?
The foundation did not handle that well.
I was trying to work the deal.
That's
and-
part of the process. That was like a big deal for
Right,
him.
right.
His office.
I tried to tell people that Will's doing, you cannot control the future, but yeah,
That is an
will or trust or
understatement.
whatever.
Yeah. So you're practicing at all? You doing anything?
Not really. I own multiple businesses.
That's off the What's that?
Businesses.
Which one?
One propane business.
Oh, okay.
One here is propane on Cacho.
Oh, yeah.
Good to see you, sir.
It's in the binder. No, it's right.
You're gonna sit up here?
Yeah.
Then Ben, you can sit up there, see?
Asset sale.
Okay.
But I work basically full time.
That one is for you.
That was like, that was enough.
And then we close. Well, he's been my private client for many, many, many years.
Yeah.
And certainly since I retired, he's the only one. I don't carry malpractice insurance, so I can't represent anybody. Anyway, we have a contract on, we haven't closed, so.
For some reason, I had you placed in Arizona.
Mike,
then.
my
Okay.
husband. And we have a home.
Okay.
It's really whatever it is.
Just in case.
Well, we have that place, they have. He has it at home, we have it at home. Mike grew up, they did it, whatever you call it, a 1031 exchange.
Mhm.
So his share of the family home, he traded his sister, got a different home, it's just down the street,
Okay.
the same neighborhood. And our youngest son and his wife live in our Scottsdale house.
Cool.
And so,
Cool. Is he a lawyer too, your son?
no, he's a chemical engineer.
Yeah, smart guy.
Yeah, I wouldn't encourage.
Yeah. You teaching?
No, I don't work. I mean.
I would think that they would want to rope you in like the
I said the little bit of work that I do for my brother and me was way is
Enough to
way
keep you
more.
busy.
I'm the chairman of the board, and so that's not really and it's certainly not full time.
If you want to do it
So
right.
to the
Yeah.
extent I need a professional outlet. That's my professional outlet.
Good for you. Cool.
I didn't realize you lived in Mesilla.
You know where Mesilla Farms is?
Mhm.
That's kitty
Okay.
corner from the Spotted Dog back in
Okay.
been there since 2017.
Ah.
I moved in and then Jerry promptly moved out. He was like,
I had
"I'm
nothing
out
to
of
do.
here."
You ran around.
But your neighbor.
Just wait when we go.
Okay.
He's on his way. There he is. Speak of the devil. You're up on the dais.
Sit up here.
One chair says the Nuremberg.
Well,
1946.
Who did? I actually lost.
Sure.
What's that? And that's fine. Opportunity for it. So.
Also, this statewide campaign, we have a paid campaign staff and people who've taken over things. Like everything's spun out of control. They do all kinds of shit without asking me, and I'm like, I never.
I'm just not used to that. Yeah.
No, I'm not. I mean, like Amanda never had a check on our account. I wrote all the checks. I
Yeah.
control the spending. I gave the yes or no on expenses. And it was always yes, of course, unless it was not proper appropriate campaign expense.
Yeah.
And now I just pray they're doing it right. They certainly are.
If not, you'll get the
checking in
answer for it.
with me. Yeah, that is the treasure. That's why I remind them. But anyway, they're all people that have big, big reputations in the campaign
Cool.
world. And
They know
so,
what they're doing.
well, and they don't want to screw up.
Amanda's great.
And so Russell called me in my 2 weeks at home.
I don't know yet.
Perfect, right?
Yeah, the timing was like I was
See what how
prepared
this
to
all
say
shakes
no.
out.
10th.
Oops, I'm sorry.
It might be
You got one.
no, but the election.
Oh. I'd prefer to be employed. There's Ramona.
They'll pay you.
Huh?
They'll pay you.
Well, yeah. I think I'd do better as a Walmart greeter, though.
So you still out motorcycling all
Yeah, as much as we can. Although, you know, you spend the first half of your life acquiring things and the second half getting rid of stuff. All of a sudden, I woke up one morning. I was like, I've got 7 motorcycles. That's a bunch too many. So I've started
Oh,
like
really?
selling
Well, it's
stuff.
funny. I can remember when my kids were growing up. I remember reaching the saturation where I said, you know what?
You bet.
I accept it. You can never own too many motorcycles. Can't even count how many you have.
Well, when you maintain everything, and we'll email about that. So it's like, it's too much shit to take care of. Start selling stuff.
That's what I was just thinking of. So
It's very calming.
Is that you?
No, Liz. It's like the end of a meditation session.
And then it comes out on the thing outside. You can hear the
I tried to turn it down so it wasn't
yeah,
so
that's okay.
loud over there.
My phone's silent.
All right, today is Tuesday, June 10th, 2025. The time is now 5:04 in the evening. We are here at the Mesilla Town Hall for a public hearing. Will you close that door? This one? Someone close that door, if you would, please. Just because of it, the echo. We can keep this one open, but that one, if we close that one. Yes, please. Just because you can hear that back echo coming through. Thank you. All right. Sorry to start again. We're at the Mesilla Town Hall for a public hearing for our municipal ordinance jurisdiction advisory committee. The first item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. If everybody will please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next order of business is roll call and determination of a quorum. Gloria, if you can help out with that, please.
Mayor Hernandez,
Present.
Judge Mateo, Trustee Nevares,
Present.
Marshall Escarate, Ms. Ellis,
Present.
Ms. Garcia, Present, Mr. Heinrich,
Here.
Mayor, we have a quorum.
Thank you very much, and all committee members are present. Next item on the agenda is a formal business action for committee chairperson nomination and election. So with that, I'm just running the general part of the meeting. So to help out with that, I'll open the floor for nominations. And I would actually like to nominate Trustee Nevares, myself, to be the chairperson for the committee.
I would second that.
Are there any other nominations? Seeing as there are no other nominations on the floor, and there's a motion by myself and a second by Mr. Heinrich. Gloria, if you can roll call vote for the committee chairperson, please.
Mayor Hernandez,
Yes.
Judge Mateo. Yes. Trustee Nevares,
Yes.
Marshall Escarate,
Yes.
Ms. Ellis,
Yes.
Ms. Garcia. Yes. Mr. Heinrich,
Yes.
Mayor, the roll call is 7 yes.
Great, thank you very much for that. Trustee Nevadas, we will fully turn the meeting over to you.
All right, thank you, Mayor. The next item on the agenda is number 4, changes to the agenda and approval, and I will entertain a motion.
So moved to approve the agenda as it's presented.
It was moved by Mayor Hernandez and seconded by Veronica Garcia. So is there any discussion on the agenda?
No,
Any
sir.
changes, no discussion?
No, sir.
Okay, having here none, the roll call for, yes.
Marshall Escarate. Trustee Nevadas,
Yes.
Mr. Heinrich,
Yes.
Ms. Ellis,
Yes.
Mayor Hernandez,
Yes.
Ms. Garcia. Yes. Judge Di Matteo.
Yes.
The roll call is
I-
7
Thank you.
yes.
Do you want us to wait? or- Okay.
Sorry. I appreciate you guys.
The next item on the agenda is number 5, which will be the public hearing related to NMSA 35-14-1 municipal courts. Item I relating to the possibility to designate the magistrate court as the municipal ordinance court. I am. I got it right. Is it working? I don't think it's working. Testing. Is it better? Can you hear? Okay.
Thank you.
Elementary rules, he can.
You're down 445.
No, it goes on.
She just reprinted it for me.
Oh.
Up to June is 284. They have 480 for 42.
Well, this is what we got. This may not be what they've turned in or
But not
whatever.
even that.
This is-
No, but not even that. Look at this. Look at 2024. This is 2024. It wasn't 1,003. It was 987.
regardless of what they say, let's just say all the numbers are correct. Here's what you got. You've got 19, 25. This is the way, and you've got
Stuff.
numbers,
Mhm.
okay, or rather time and numbers. This is a way to I
Yes.
don't care how you this in, this is what this is doing.
Yeah, but this number.
And the reason this is happening is because something ain't working.
I apologize about, I truly do, for everybody, I apologize about the interruptions, but I appreciate you.
Okay, I'm going to repeat item number 5, public hearing. This meeting, public hearing relating to NMSA 35-14-1, municipal court creation. Item number I, relating to the possibility of to designate the magistrate court as the municipal ordinance court. The next item of business will be, I guess, identifying who's going to provide testimony, correct?
Right. Well, we need to close the meeting and open the public hearing,
Okay, sorry.
and then
Okay, we are going to go into the public hearing. I'll entertain a motion to do such.
Mr. Chair, I move to close the general meeting to enter into our public hearing.
I'll second that motion.
Mayor has moved to close the meeting and go into the public hearing, seconded by Mr. Heinrich. Is there any discussion?
No, sir.
If there is none, we can go ahead and, is there any discussion from any of the members?
No, take the vote first.
Yes, Judge?
Does the statute provide for an automatic move to the magistrate court, or is this just a suggestion? In other words, this is just a point of clarification. Perhaps Attorney Cavell may have more insight.
And Judge, that's what this process is all about, completely, is going through all of the details, and that will be covered by the attorneys as well.
Is that the purpose of this committee under the statute?
Correct. Just as it states in the statute for that.
Is the purpose of the committee to provide a report to the governing body?
Yes, sir. Just as it was put in the resolution.
Okay, so basically, we're discussing the resolution of the potential for magistrate court substitution over the municipal court. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion for the public hearing?
Is there any other discussion? If not, we'll need a roll call.
Yes. Sorry, Jerry.
Nevares,
Yes.
Mr. Heinrich,
Yes.
Ms. Ellis,
Yes.
Mayor Hernandez,
Yes.
Ms. Garcia. Yes. Marshall Espada. Yes. Mayor, the roll, I'm sorry,
The judge.
Chairperson, the roll call.
Did you call the judge? Did you?
Oh, I'm sorry, Judge Di Matteo. Okay. 7, yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, now identification of those individuals who will provide testimony during the public hearing. We'll have to, can we have them stand? Go ahead and stand, and we'll have you duly sworn in for the testimony part of the public hearing. Please stand if you're going to provide testimony. Lord. Is that it, everybody?
Please repeat after me. I do solemnly swear.
solemnly swear
That the testimony I shall give.
the testimony I shall give
Will be the truth.
will be the truth,
The whole truth.
the whole truth,
And nothing but the truth.
and nothing but the truth.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Any particular order?
I mean, I think it would be wise
We'll
for
open with our
attorney.
Mr. Young.
Good evening, members of the committee. My name is Benjamin Young. I'm one of the attorneys at Minot Springer, general counsel for the town of Municipal for the last year and a half now. So I guess my task at the moment, my colleague Rob Cabello is here. He's functioned over the last year as the town's prosecutor. So we're both here to provide some testimony, and then my role is more of a bird's eye level view to give an assessment of the process, and then if there are questions for Mr. Cabello about the prosecutions themselves, that's what he is here. The process that Judge Di Matteo asked about earlier, you all have been appointed as a committee under the statute to review from interested parties, the mayor, the police, law enforcement, the judge, and then interested members of the community about whether or not it makes sense for the town to continue having a municipal court that addresses all of its ordinances, or maybe some limited form of that, or to just continue with the status quo. Your job after, over the course of today, is to hear this testimony and then provide a report to the governing body for them to make the final decision. If the governing body is and based on y'all's report, agrees that the municipal court should either be restricted in some way or should be eliminated, dissolved, so that magistrate court can take over, then the board of trustees would adopt an ordinance to that effect, which would be reviewed and approved by the New Mexico Supreme Court. I've been involved with two different municipalities going through this process up in Sierra County. Both entities have provided brief written correspondence, basically just saying it's been a worthwhile endeavor for them. At the very basic level, what it's done for them is it has made their process a lot more efficient. It saved them a lot of money. I believe the Supreme Court just a couple of years ago changed the statute that takes effect this summer that restricts the amount of certain fees that municipal courts can charge. So the municipal courts all across the state are going to be losing money starting this July. Either this July, it may have even started last July. So those are some of the factors and considerations that are coming into play. Other issues that have been coming to the forefront over the last couple of years in reality is changes in state law that are making it easier for plaintiffs' counsels to bring lawsuits against government entities under the New Mexico Civil Rights Act and under the body worn camera legislation that makes it imperative for law enforcement officers to activate their body cameras anytime they engage with the public. So what's been seen in municipal court settings, and we've been, Mr. Cabello can talk about this a little bit too, if you all have questions about that, is motion practice requiring documents and videos be turned over that used to not be part of the process in municipal court. It used to be really efficient, straightforward process to make sure that municipalities' codes were enforced easily to get people in and out of the room. That has not been the case over the last several years around the state. The entities in Sierra County that I was involved with in this process, Williamsburg and Elephant Butte, again, both report that they're basically saying in the enforcement of their codes. When they send out citations now, folks in the community don't want to deal with showing up to magistrate court and waiting all day for a docket. So they're actually paying their fines or reaching an agreement right off the bat instead of having to spend a day in court in magistrate court. Just making that process easier. The other component too that we're dealing with, and you can see sort of trends statewide with the change to the statute or the Supreme Court's requirement that magistrate court judges have law licenses now, other than those who are grandfathered in. That same change did not apply to municipal courts. So municipal judges do not have to have a law degree. And that was fine for an extended period of time. But we're in a world now where things are a lot more complicated, and a mistake or failure to keep up to date with rapid changes in the law exposes municipalities to liability in ways that they don't. So that's really broad brushstrokes of what I'm bringing to the table today for you all to consider as far as what you're reviewing, and happy to answer any questions you might have, or I can, after the course of conversation today and testimony you receive, I can answer any questions and fill in gaps. But this has been a worthwhile process for a lot of different places across the state. So.
You mentioned two municipalities that in the neighboring county. One of them was Williamsburg, and the other one was
Williamsburg and Elephant Butte. I do know that Truth or Consequences adopted the same ordinance as well, probably a year or two after Elephant Butte. I know the city of Berlin was doing the same thing for a while. I don't know if that one went through yet or not, but it has been a trend over the last 4 or 5 years.
Are you familiar with why why these municipalities decided to pursue this avenue relating to municipal court and the magistrate court?
I can certainly weigh in on Elephant Butte and Williamsburg. Both were pretty similar. In Elephant Butte's case, the decision or the motivating factor there was actually the municipal judge. He approached the governing body and was basically said, "Look, you're paying me a salary for something I'm not doing have this in place. And plus, once things do come across my plate, the avenues for us to enforce these decisions that I make aren't available for us, and it's making things a lot more efficient for you all. So if we turn it over to magistrate court for them to make the decisions that can then be enforced through law enforcement, that makes it easier. In the case of Williamsburg, it was a little bit different. They had a municipal judge who was not enforcing anything, and she would give people an immense amount of time to comply. They would never come into compliance, and so the city was, or the village in that case, was sitting in situations with people who wouldn't take corrective action to clean up the weeds or to take junk cars. So there came a point there where they took the statutory process instead and had to go through a full condemnation proceeding. And in the course of that, they became comfortable with the idea of just moving away from the municipal process.
So those municipalities that you're familiar with completely moved over to magistrate court for every aspect of. Now, in relation, because municipalities have various ordinances, but I'm gonna zero in on the zoning ordinance. How does that really work for these municipalities when each municipality has maybe different kinds of ordinance relating to the zones within the confines of the municipality? I mean,
I can tell you that these municipalities that I referenced don't have nearly the complicated zoning system that the town of Municipal has. We're pretty unique in that respect. We've got historical jurisdiction components and all of that. So there's a framework in which you could change the enforcement mechanism of those particular code provisions to a different administrative body, or you could limit, if you chose to go a route of, hey, we want to have magistrate court have jurisdiction of all the criminal code that exists in the town of Mesilla, then we could figure out a way to truncate that so that in civil enforcement of zoning violations, I don't know, weeds, that type of thing could potentially still be enforced within the town's jurisdiction itself.
Would that, I guess, kind of fall back to the municipal court, or you're talking about another administrative body? I mean, how would that work? I mean,
Either you could keep that aspect of municipal court open, so they would retain jurisdiction over those things, or you could have the planning and zoning commission sit as the adjudicative body over those sides.
are there any? And I'm sorry, are there any municipalities that have their zoning, planning and zoning do adjudication?
They, as far as I'm aware, they have not truncated it in that fashion.
Okay.
So again, what these municipalities have seen, they've just transferred over all of their enforcement to magistrate
Yes.
court. And so what they've seen happen is when they send a citation on a zoning violation or the easier thing is like a weeds or vehicle type of issue with a junk vehicle on the side of the road. We send the citation out, which then you get the notice of your hearing from magistrate court. Rather than deal with that in court, spend a day waiting for the trailing docket. People either fix the violation, or they pay the fine, and that's what fashion. So they haven't had to actually go to court on those aspects for the last 3 years.
But I think people would have concerns because Mesilla is a unique municipality with their preservation of of several the aspects of Mesilla, the structures, the zoning and the enforcement of zoning, especially within the HR zone. If that were to move over to, let's say, magistrate court, they're going to have to go through a learning process because the ordinances here are a little bit more complicated in relation to the zoning aspects.
I agree with you in that, and that's where, again, the recommendation from this body in a report could be to the governing body, hey, we want to truncate what gets submitted to magistrate court for enforcement. But keep this caveat in mind, any decision that happens in municipal court here, the person who is found to have broken that or violated that ordinance has a right to appeal to district court. That's an automatic right by law that's given to anybody who's had a decision at a lower court level. So if you play that out, somebody who's sitting here going through the whole municipal court process, the judge finds against him, he feels that he hasn't violated the ordinance in any way. He appeals that to district court, and Judge Arietta or Judge Fitch gets the case and has to become familiar with that ordinance regardless. And so it would be kind of the same result, and actually potentially a lot more costly too to the municipality in the sense that you have to defend it at the lower level one time and then the next, which you also get the right to appeal from magistrate court to district court as well. So but this would, I guess, eliminate that step in the process.
Okay. I'll let other members of the
I have a
committee.
follow-up question to Mr. Navarro's line of questions. Is there anything in the state law that would preclude jurisdiction over any particular ordinance violations going to the magistrate court?
Not in terms of
Anything. You take the whole world of ordinances that Mesilla has. Is there anything that the magistrate court would not be able to take jurisdiction over?
anything that would involve enforcement that would then trigger the municipal court's involvement, magistrate court can take jurisdiction.
Okay.
As far as I'm aware, as far as how the statute has been developed at this point, I think the municipality that did it first was the village of Williamsburg. So this is a relatively recent trend of this process being followed. So there isn't a whole lot of like case law fleshing things out in terms of to fully answer that question. But as far as the process that has been followed at this point, everyone's turned over everything.
Okay, and so we've talked a little bit about the zoning.
He didn't swear in, it's not a swear in.
He's asking questions.
I'm asking questions. I'm on the committee.
You didn't know how to stand up to swear in?
He's not,
He isn't offering testimony.
yeah, he's asking questions, so it's not testimony being given.
Anybody who offers testimony has to swear in, so the judge did properly swear in, as did the mayor and marshal.
So we talked about the zoning ordinances. Is there anything else in your opinion from the year and a half or so you've been working with the town of Mesilla that you would think we would want to maybe extricate or pull out from pushing over to the magistrate court?
The zoning provisions would probably be the focal point to remove and figure out a better way to process those. I'll defer, also, you can ask that question to Mr. Cabello as well, and he'll be able to elaborate. I'm pretty sure he will agree with me on the criminal code that we've got, and then especially nuisance types of civil violations would be best suited for magistrate court. But you can correct me if I'm wrong.
Thank you.
I have no questions.
You have no questions?
No questions.
Ms. Garcia?
So my question is, if we were to move to magistrate court, are they willing to take our cases? Because they're overwhelmed with all the cases that they have.
I don't think magistrate court has an ability to say no, because it's a statutory process that's overseen by the Supreme Court. So the Supreme Court approves the process that we go through, then they're given jurisdiction over those ordinances.
And my other question is if when we go to court, who's gonna pick up the cost? Let's say if one of the officers do arrest somebody and you take them in, who's picking up that cost?
And I guess
Representing the town of Mesilla, will Mesilla be picking it up?
typically that's prosecution in magistrate court is done by the law enforcement officers. So that's or if you have a DWI type of scenario, that's actually given to the DA's office, and they would prosecute that.
So we would have to still shoot that.
If it gets referred to the DA's office, then that comes out of the fund that the DA's have. That would be the city's.
So if we have someone in jail, who picks up that cost? Does they get charged with 100 and something a day?
That would probably remain the same framework that it is now.
Yeah, because it comes out of the court's budget.
No, that would be whatever the MOU is between.
Comes out of corrections fund in particular.
Correction fund.
Yes, so Fund 33.
Anybody on the committee have any questions?
I think that in all of this too, and just to note that however it goes forward in section G of the statute, that if the municipality does pass this ordinance designating the magistrate court of the county as a municipality court, if you will, the process can also be reversed to reestablish the municipality or the municipal court in the event that it's not working out as it would be intended.
That is correct, Mayor. It's not a final done deal. It is reversible. You can spend a couple of years doing it and realize it's not been cost effective. If you don't like the decisions that are coming from the magistrate court, adopt an ordinance repealing the previous ordinance.
So to go through that process, we just have another type of process like we're having this evening with a committee and et cetera.
Yes.
The public hearing is.
And that's fully defined in the statute on that
I believe that's from paragraph
G.
Any other questions of Mr. Young? No. Okay, thank you.
Happy to answer any other questions.
All right, you might get called back. Yes, yes. Sorry.
Just want to be sure everybody's able to hear. So I realized that the microphone wasn't working.
Okay.
Russell Hernandez, for the record, Mayor Town of Mesilla. Members of the committee, thank you for being here and thank
One more
you.
question for the record.
Yeah. Thank you for follow-up on that. Yes, Mr. Chair, I've been duly sworn in.
Thank you.
So thank you very much. I have put together a binder of information for you, just for clarification and also information. So I'll run through that real quick and then I can answer questions that you may have. First couple of pages are just the state statute as it's been provided, going through the process and the specific process that should be followed. There was question about information from other municipalities. I did include letters that were sent from the village of Williamsburg, as well as Elephant Butte. So those are included in there. That's coming from the court clerks, the municipal town clerks in there. In the information that follows, it's all budgetary information. That's recaps. I just did a recap of overall on everything, and I'll touch on that in specific, but the following pages after that, and specifically tabbed, I tried to organize it for everybody for easy reference as well, and highlight the necessary information. But you have one tab that follows behind, which is the financial information for the courts in particular, and everything that pertains to the court for 2023, fiscal year 2023. The tab 22-23. The tab after that is for information for fiscal year 23-24. And then the tab after that is for 24-25 up to the current month in that. The information that does follow that dives into a little bit more detail that was provided by the court as well as by the Marshal's Department, and I'll touch on that, but I did have that as first information that's being provided to you, so that way you can see that information. We have the average citations that have been issued as of those years. This isn't from the fiscal year, though. I want to note this is from the actual year, from January to December in those numbers, and they are in the back of the second tab, if you will. With the average citations that were issued in there, I did include not just those that came to the court, but those that were also penalty assessments by the officers. In speaking with the marshal about the process on that, he was stating how there's potential that once a penalty is assessed, that sometimes the person that receives the citation might want to actually come back and have it heard in court. So I went with the assumption on the larger side, giving more benefit of the doubt for the average number of citations that were being issued there. I also want to note that with the general citations that are not code citations, that those citations can also presently already be moved to be heard in magistrate court as it is, and that's up to the officer's discretion on that as well. And I'm sure that the marshal can talk a little bit more on that a little bit later. What you see, so in 2023, you see 397 average cases, 2024, 777, and then 25 so far year to date, 673 citations overall that have been issued. With that, we have the average cases as they were rolling. This is information that was put together by the court clerk. Thank you, Ramona, for putting that information together. With that, she pulled them all from dockets. In this, it was a little confusing to me at first, personally, when I see the difference in the numbers, because when you see for 23, you see the average rolling cases as being 2,242. But as it was explained by the court clerk, is that you have the case when it comes in, which is counted one time. Then you have the time that an arraignment is heard when the person comes in. Then you have the time that there may be a continuance or maybe show cause. So each time that there is the person coming into court, that is counted as our system counts that as that. So that's why it's a bigger number than the actual citations that are being pulled from the officer system that the marshal has there. In the first line there, or the first part of this that you see, that's the total court costs. This is coming out of the general fund in specific. So Fund 10, which is what you have here following in the pages here. As you can see, I tried to break it out just a little bit for you for clarification with the amount that was budgeted and what the court expenditures were. Court fines budgeted, what the actual fines were. I put in the marshal's payroll in there, and I just put the marshal's payroll in there just to give kind of an idea with a 1% average hourly cost, because the marshals are pulled from duty in general whenever they have to come to court. So I wanted to just account for a little bit in that can probably fluctuate up and down as that, but I think that a 1% average on there is a decent amount, and that probably does include a little bit of that prisoner transport back and forth as well. And then the following line that you have there is court attorney fees, what was budgeted, and then the fees that were actual for the year, and then adjustments that were made. So this is where we had adjustments in those years where we had overexpended, and then we had to make an adjustment out of a different line item in there, which this year we already made that, recognized that we were going in the red on that line item. So we made that pull preliminarily or preemptively, if you will, sorry, to get that money in there so that we don't have an adjustment at the end of the year on that line item. One thing that I want to note on the court budget overall, and just all of this, as you see in the court budget and the expenditures, is that the department as a whole is running perfectly fine. And Ramona is doing a fantastic job on that part, as well as the judge, on ensuring that the daily operating budget from the town's perspective is being met and actually exceeded in several different ways, which is phenomenal. So I just want to bring that into note. But what we do have, of course, is where we're seeing the increased costs and attorneys' fees all across the board down the line. And that's where we're having a significant increase for the total court costs there. You'll also notice that the court fines and those actual fines is also declining. That can be happening by several different for several different reasons. That could be cases that are maybe dismissed, but more so in all of this, it's also as a statute that was passed a couple of years ago, where the municipalities used to receive a certain amount of money per ticket that was issued and citations in there, and that was completely pulled and it goes into the state's pot now, and that doesn't come back to the municipalities. So we no longer receive that. And Ben, you'll have to talk on that if you know those numbers, but I think it was $14 on average per ticket that we were receiving that was coming back to the municipality, but that has been fully taken away from the municipalities and goes back into the state's pot. So with that, that's why you see the fines slowly going down as well, because what we have here are general citations, code citations, and other citations that are going through. On the other parts that you have other court funds that are related, but not related to the general operating per se, that directly affect the court's costs in general operations, and what that is. So court bonds in here, budgeted amounts, actual revenues, actual expenses. This one's always been a hot topic for years because of the amount that's here, and that's what you'll see on that second page here. Is that everything gets put into a specific pooled cash account, and that's what this 53,000 is that's in there. This is a total claim on the municipal court bond fund that's there. So every time that there's that bond taken in, that gets added into that. So that's the total bonds that we have presently, our total amount in bonds. The court automation, as you see, it's used to be budgeted, but that was another thing that the state took away back in 2023. There was the law that was passed by the legislators for that. The same for some of the funding that happens through the corrections fund and the fees that are associated with that. So that's part of the reason why we see a decline as well in the corrections fund over the years. And we're actually in the negative, as you can see from the numbers that are provided there in that for this year presently. So we will be having to do some adjustments on this fund as well from the general fund in order to make that. So that'll be in our next Board of Trustees meeting. Questions so far on this information?
Yes. Why is the court attorney fee budget almost double? 73, last year, 23-24 was 73,268. Now it's 145,000. Why is it so high?
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's several different reasons. I'm sure Mr. Cabello can talk a little bit more on that. But when we're looking through all of this, it's a combination of different things. We have cases that are rolling over that are being heard. You have to remember that we changed attorneys from year to year. So these are new. One thing to take into consideration is that these are new attorneys that are hearing cases that are rolling over. So they have to bring themselves up to speed on where they're on all the information from the cases. There's also information, and I'm sure that in a conversation that I had with Mr. Cabello as well about this, is that in the longer that we keep someone detained, because we can legally keep them up to 72 hours in detainment. So the longer that we keep them detained is a longer period of time that there has to be the attorney actually physically watching the video and ensuring that, just watching every little aspect of that happening throughout. So.
Well, I guess my question is more into breaking it down is, does it have to do with them presenting the case here in the town of Mesilla, or the officers getting advice from the attorney?
It's not the officers getting advice as far as I'm aware. Mr. Cabello can probably speak on that part. So.
That's what I'm asking. Is that how that dollar amount, is it? What?
And to answer that question, ultimately is everything that's matters are a completely separate line. So those that happen for tort claims for the town and things like that, those are coming out of a separate line item. So these are specifically town of Mesilla court related costs. So, and they're broken down. That's the one thing about the attorney's invoices is that they're broken down, or at least MyNat's invoices, is they're broken down by each individual call, each individual email, the amount of time on a call, who the call was with, being the attorney, being every little detail is in there. So
That's how I wanted the invoices to see why it was so high.
Yeah.
Yeah, so how many times he called in, how many times, everything on there. That's what I wanted to see, how many times he did the court, the attorneys are representing the CF, or are the officers coming in and representing themselves for it?
Right.
So that's why I'm curious about, that's really high.
Yes, ma'am, it sure is.
Even at 168,000 for attorney court fees budget, 23-24 was 73,000. Fiscal year for 24-25 is 168,000.
And member of the committee, just for clarification on that as well, is I want you to understand that the budget that we had set originally matched that amount that we had in there. I think we actually had it set at about 80,000 at the end of the year. And then this last, one of the last board of trustee meetings, we did ask for an adjustment to come from the general fund in specific to cover the shortfalls that were happening already. And we did ask for the extra because we still do have 2 months worth of invoices that are to be received and still paid out.
Mayor Hernandez, I want to make sure I understand this document, the one with all the numbers on it.
Yes, sir.
The court budget would obviously be an expense item, right? The court fines budget, is that actually a revenue item?
Yes.
That's incoming, right? Fine.
Correct.
Okay. Marshal payroll is an expense item, and the court attorney's fees budget obviously is an expense item. If you net all of these out, you're looking at a red ink every year, right? So on average, the last 3 years, do you have a net number, how much it has lost, how much it has cost the community?
I mean, that's why I think when you look at the overall, I mean, just in what we have here, that's why I tried to provide this information as it is. That's the true cost. So 110,000 1 year.
So that's netting out the revenues?
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
Gotcha. Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you. Okay.
Yeah, because that's taking the court expenditures less the fines, adding in the average hourly cost for the officers, and then adding in the actual fees and the fee adjustments.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
If I understand, I'm probably the most ignorant person in the room about what we're doing right here today. And I've read the statute, I'm a lawyer, I get it, but in terms of what are our objectives, or what is the commission's objective, so what benefits would there be is kind of what I'm looking at. One of them, obviously, talking about these numbers, is the financial side of it. I don't know if that's the only primary or just one of several objectives. But when I look at these costs, they don't all go away if you just adopt the municipal or the magistrate system, do they? I mean, the attorney's fees, we would still have an attorney representing the city, is that correct?
From my understanding is that it's all assumed by the magistrate court. So, but I don't know on that 100%. And if we don't have that information, that's information that we can definitely gather, so.
So I'm just trying to, and when I go down this list, I'm thinking, okay, you say the court budget, obviously, because you don't have a court. The court fines piece of that is the revenue piece. That revenue piece goes away. I presume the fines and magistrate go to the magistrate, go to the state. The marshal payroll still stays. And I presume the amount of time that they're spending going to municipal court, they will instead spend going to magistrate court.
I think one of those things to take, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but I think with the marshals, something to take into consideration because they would still have to be representative of their cases. But magistrate is still hearing all courses or all cases virtually. So there is no, so these team members can ultimately be doing it from a vehicle and Zoom. So
It doesn't just go away.
no.
And then the attorney's fees, I guess, would be the same.
That the attorney's fees in particular is something that I will have to look into, and I think it would be case dependent and on that, and I'm sure the attorneys will speak on that. But just as it was mentioned earlier by Mr. Young, is that the representation by the district court would also be present depending upon the type of case that's there. So those lawyers would be there.
The district court doesn't provide counsel.
That's so.
Unless it's the DA's office.
DA's office.
And then I was gonna say, just confirm that the DA's office would be the one that's doing the prosecutions of the officers not handling it. And then on the other end, the public defender would handle the cases that are eligible for, having a free attorney service. So people that are going, likely to go to jail for 6 months, they'll get the public defender.
I'm aware of that process. My question is, this number sheet, where it has court attorney fees budget, what portion of that goes away if we go to magistrate court, if any?
I imagine
A substantial portion.
a substantial portion of it, like unless I'm handling some sort of codes case.
Maybe I don't even really understand what the does. I presume you were kind of in a prosecutorial role.
I was a
So
prosecutor.
what's going to DA are being going to be handled by the DA's office, but the many that the DA's office won't handle, from my understanding, is they don't handle anything that's below felony, maybe?
Well, my understanding with the court, the DA's office now, I'm not sure about the prior administration, but the current one is handling the DUIs and the domestic violence cases. Obviously,
It's gonna
those,
still be significant. And the civil ones are certainly not being handled.
yeah, they're not being handled at all.
So that'll still be,
But
we'll still need a court attorney.
the civil cases are not in that budget though. So like,
Not-
no, so like with the civil case, that's not part of the prosecution sort of budget.
And this is the whole court, but it's not just.
So are you sorry, Ms. Ellis, are you speaking on civil cases such as tort claims to the town?
No. I'm talking about like Zoom.
Right,
A violation.
correct.
I think I can help chime in
Yeah.
on this. So I think there's a little bit of, most of what we do in municipal court are either the DWI type criminal cases or any criminal cases in which legal counsel has been retained by the criminal defendant. So usually that's in the criminal context. There've been very few civil codes that we've gotten. Those, and I think one of the primary ones that actually took a whole lot of time was one of those holdover cases that we received in the transfer of files. It's been this long-term back and forth between a frequent codes violator, but he had legal counsel on that one. And so that's where there was a lot of time incurred in that. But then, so when we're talking about the costs associated with prosecuting DUIs here, and part of the component of that, a lot of that goes away. Mr. Cabello's not sitting in the office watching the hours in which this person's on surveillance camera, potentially admitting to his violation.
Thank you. Sorry about the confusion on that. Thank you, Mr. Young. Yeah, definitely. Other questions on this part?
I do have another question. It's more big picture though. As the mayor, do you have an opinion on where this ought to go?
I wanted to go through the process ultimately and see what's determined through process. It's an avenue in everything, so when I look at it overall, personally, from the executive standpoint, and you see just the base number here, if that is a potential that a good chunk of that could go back into into infrastructure or into another position that supports future growth or whatever may be needed. That's kind of what I look at is the long range goals of what that may be. So that's
Sorry to push on the spot.
no, and that's that. But I think that there's definitely options that are viable. And I think that, as it was brought up earlier, there's the potential of us still, having, because I know one of my team members, and he's not here right now, used to work for the city of Anthony. And in Anthony, they still have their municipal court, but they have enacted the Planning and Zoning Commission to actually hear the cases that come in front of them for the property cases in particular, or codes violations. And he said that the way that they work that is, rather than having the specific individual listed as it typically would be in the violation, they name the property instead. So now you're issuing the citation to the property, and that's how we can get away with the commission actually hearing the case, rather than it needing the case to be heard otherwise. So that is a potential or an option, so I'm open for options all around. So, and it can be business as usual, and we do that and just plan on increasing the budget, or having everything go to magistrate court, or doing something that's both. There's another municipality that, and Eddie's not here to talk on it, but he was telling me about another municipality up north that has, and I don't know the specific position, but there's a position that is on staff that specifically hears nothing but the cases. Not a judge by any means. It's just a staff member that serves in the capacity of hearing codes cases when they come forward. So that's another potential option in that. I don't know how that works exactly, but it's an avenue, so I think it was Taos that was doing that. Yeah, so, and that. Other questions?
And just brought up the concept that the city of Anthony is using, where the zoning commission does both, hears applicants, regarding zoning, and it maybe works with permits, and then on the other hand adjudicates. Is there, I guess, in your view, wouldn't that create a conflict at some point? I know you said the cases involve the individual property owner, but the property itself. But in the long run, wouldn't that create some kind of conflict?
I haven't, honestly, trustee, I've not done enough
Okay.
research on
I
that
just wondering, since
to know.
you've had conversation.
I just know that it was part of a conversation as a potential option that
Yes.
that could be reviewed.
Okay.
So, any other questions on the budget side?
Yes. So let's say a person, they put them on a payment plan and they have a balance. Are you all gonna still collect from that?
That's well. So I know we do have an issue with the payment plan. So yes, that would be collecting, and that goes into the general fund, as it always has been in the past.
It goes into general funds past. So what happens if we bring up a case and there's a balance should be at zero, and it's not at zero?
I wouldn't be able to answer that. That would be a case that we'd hit whenever we get there.
Because it's happened in the past where there was a balance that was supposed to be zero, and they reversed the payment. They picked up the person, and Mesilla had to pay that person back. They picked up their car, they picked up everything and stuff on there.
Yeah.
So there is several cases out there that people that should have a balance of zero, and they're not. So you do need to be aware that there is reverse payments going on. So that's going to be reliable for the town of Mesilla. And then the reason I asked if the municipality is going to be okay with it, because I know Raton tried to go through the process of this, and they didn't, because the courts were like, well, they were overwhelmed with all their cases. So I think we should get with magistrate and talk to them and ask them, are they going to be able to handle the town of Mesilla?
Yeah.
We need to ask them.
I think that, member of the committee, I think that when you look through the statute and in discussion also with the municipal league, when we look at this, the specific process is that if it's determined by this committee that everything would be heard in magistrate court, that would be a recommendation, a change in code in our town code. Then it would have to be with that resolution that comes from the Board of Trustees. That would be sent then to the New Mexico Supreme Court. And then it would have to be reviewed by the New Mexico Supreme Court. They would have to fully accept it as it's noted. And then it would be sent to the magistrate court, who would then adopt our full set of codes.
But then it comes back to, again, though, if they're overwhelmed and a court case lags on and lags on, like they're saying before, it comes back to that fee. Correct?
That's something that we'd have to look into on that part. But I think that in note of all this as well is it just as I had mentioned earlier, is it, or if I didn't mention it, then I'll put it out there again. And I know that Marshal Escartha can talk on it a little bit more. But presently, our officers, when they issue a citation, they can automatically say that they want to send it to magistrate court. That doesn't necessarily have to be heard here in municipal court. So, and there have been several cases that have been pushed off for that as that. So,
Yeah.
Okay. So I just want to make note of that. Questions on the budget part? No? So on the second tab, just continuing on in here, information, as I had mentioned, as it was brought up in there for the, by the court, by the court clerk with information on the number of cases, so forth, and these are rolling cases. The information from the marshal's department on cases, and their department did break it down specifically for court cases, penalty assessment, and warnings that were given out with monthly totals. As I mentioned before, in the totals that I had included in there, it was the cases here and penalty assessments. So one thing that I do want to note on these here is that these are all specific citations that are not code related citations. So the codes specific cases are not included in these totals. And that would have to be a different number that's pulled up and out. But I would assume that it's safe to say that on average for codes cases, as of from the first of the year, we'd probably see 1 to 2 a week, maybe up to 5 total a week, potentially in that on average for codes cases. The next tab over on that, I just wanted to, as it was mentioned by, sorry, question. Sure. Sorry, shoot.
So I asked Ms. Ramona to pull out the court cases for January of 2022. I get all the numbers you were saying for the year 2022. The total you have is 2,242. Huh?
Those are all Ramona's.
Right,
That's coming from the
245,
court.
Right, but we don't, how many court cases did you see for, what did you tell me, 3?
Since my tenure, codes cases, I've handled 3. 3 only. I should be overwhelmed with codes violations. For point of clarification, I've handled 3.
So that's even more clarification on the budget stuff as well.
And then here we go, the page where it says Municipal Marshal's Office, 2022, year 2022, it was 2,449. 2023 was 1,900. This is how many court cases that the court has seen here. December for 2024, the year 2024, 987. From January to now, 284 cases. The numbers keep getting lower. And I understand you can't put a quota, I understand all that kind of stuff there, but there's, how many tickets were done? 1 in 2 weeks? A week?
3.
No, we
No, wait, when I make my presentation, I'll clarify.
So the numbers have gone down. I'm just letting you know that.
So, question on these numbers, are these going to any court or to our court here in Municipal or to Are they the total of the ones going to the magistrate's court and the Municipal court?
No.
Okay,
These
so
are-
it's not split up.
The numbers I gave are the numbers that we see here at this court.
I'm looking at the Municipal Marshal's report.
My ticket count is split between that court and our court.
So it's the total of 12. Thank you.
Other questions? The second part, or the next tab in there, just as it was brought up by Mr. Young at the very beginning, is that magistrate court, municipal courts, qualifications for judges are decided by ordinance of the municipalities. So with that in mind, I wanted to make sure that we had our ordinance here for you to review. If you look under the qualifications there, the first item under 260.10 for qualifications, the only thing that's defined there is that a municipal judge shall be a resident of the municipality. Does not mean that they need to have a law degree, does not mean that they need to have any law enforcement background. We've been blessed with the fact that our previous judges, including our current judge, do have that law enforcement background. But that's not to say that that would be the case in the future in any means. So just keeping in for clarification of that on that side. I also, in this, when we think about that it could be in any one of the judges and coming in, I do have a report that was provided by one of the lieutenants in here regarding concerns on how cases are presently being heard in the court. I do encourage you to read that document as it was provided because it does have some questionable just questions to be asked on how certain cases are handled. And I think to some of the questions that were asked earlier, specifically on when we look at the number of cases that are being heard and potentially heard here in our municipal court, it wouldn't be surprising if the officers did try to push them off to be heard in a different court. Now, I will note that that is taken up in a different process with the type of complaint in that, if that is a formal complaint that is issued and does have that. But I do believe that it is valid to be brought up. I do have another letter of potential misconduct that was submitted by the county and the county's court clerk and attorney to just recently. I did not include that in the packet because I still need to have, that was recently sent in, and I still need to review that with the judge for clarification on that. But I do want to make sure to bring that up as a point as well. So we do have the potential of other issues and liabilities in there. Any questions?
In relation to the qualifications, because they don't need to have any type of JD law degree or any other type of experience.
No, but the magistrate court judges do have to have a JD as of now, and I believe that there's either 5 or 7 judges now that are on the bench.
And regarding the town ordinance, the town could the town change the ordinance regarding qualifications?
Yes, of course.
Mm.
And that could be another recommendation that's reviewed by this committee.
But one of the qualifications that the individual who becomes a judge has to be a resident of Messiah, right?
That is if you see the ordinances that's in there, as I provided, that's one of the sole things.
Repeating, yeah, so.
Yes, sir. Any other questions?
The statute seems to say the salary is $15,000.
Yes, ma'am.
So what are the other costs in that, court costs?
So the salary that's in there that you have, that is part of the budget, the little over $80,000 or $85,000 budget that we have in there for that. And then the other costs that are in there is the cost of the court clerk as well as the general operating costs for the courts. There's a full breakdown on the generalized costs in there on, if you look on, yeah. So you can see in the general fund it's the third page, and it says page 6 at the top. It has oh no, sorry, that's the marshal's department. So it's page 5 at the top. It has the general fund for the court. It shows all of the expenses that are for personnel, and then everything that's broken down in other expenses, including travel, agreements and contracts, office supplies, dues, subscriptions, telephone, so on and so forth.
Are there any other questions from the committee?
Great. That's all I have. Thank you. I appreciate you all.
The next person.
Good evening, committee chairperson and public.
What, you need to identify
Oh,
yourself.
Marshall Benescarate for the town of Mesilla.
And have you been duly sworn
Yes.
in?
Yes, sir.
Yes, okay, thank you.
I'll stand for any questions. There are certain cases that are by state statute already going to MAG court. The domestic related cases do not come to Mesilla Muni Court. We are also cross-commissioned, so my guys can pull traffic anywhere in the county, city. If they're outside of the town jurisdiction, those are also going to MAG court automatically. We've had a couple DWIs that have gone to MAG court. That's dependent on it was third or fourth degree or third or fourth time DWIs, or the officer felt it needed to go to MAG court. Since I was told of the monetary issues with the court or the town general fund, I instructed my personnel to send what they can to MAG court. It saves the money or saves money in prisoner care because MAG court hears them on the weekends as we don't. If my guys arrest someone at Friday night, they don't get seen until Monday, if Monday. So that's 3 days worth of prisoner care at 120 something a pop. MAG court has Zoom meetings, phone calls where the judge will ROR them. If they decide to keep them in, then they decide to keep them in, but more than likely they're ROR'd with a court date to appear. If they don't appear, then a MAG warrant's issued. My guys are out there patrolling. At the beginning of the year, the ticket numbers didn't show it, citation numbers didn't show it, but I was down 3 personnel. My day shift officers were covering one of the schools as our SRO contract calls for 2 deputies at the school. If I break that contract, LCPS can withdraw funding for 2 positions in my department, so I would lose 2 people. We also have 3 schools. Zia Middle School is a challenge for my SRO. He is averaging 4 or 5 reports a day, ranging from multiple fights, vape, tobacco, drug use, runaways, anything like that. My SRO at RGPI has a little more freedom, so he's usually at Zia Middle School helping my Zia SRO. Me as a marshal, I'm usually in the office or at meetings, but I do go out there and patrol. I've been hitting the school zones hard. I know my lieutenant's also in the office, working on projects, grants, funding. He's out there patrolling. My other day shift guy's patrolling. Like Ms. Garcia said, you can't enforce a quota. I'll never force it in quota because that's illegal. My guys are out there patrolling, making themselves visible, keeping the town safe. Their main priority is not traffic citation. We pull traffic. We have traffic. It's up to the officer discretion as a written warning, verbal warning, penalty assessment, quarter, anything like that. So we're out there. Even if people say we're not, I know my guys are out there. They do end of shift reports. I have call logs that I submit to the BOT every month. We're averaging 330 calls for service a month, and we're sitting at 350 case reports generated up until to this current date. Within those reports, we're getting bigger and larger felony cases, whether that be fights, batteries, deadly weapon calls, but our large ones coming are now fraud, wash checks, forgery, and those cases are snowballing into cases that we're working with the Doña Ana County Sheriff's Office, LCPD, Our newest one, we're in contact with El Paso PD, Roswell PD, and another jurisdiction up north, all stemming from a minor forgery case here. I'm fine sending criminal cases to Mag Court as my deputies run tracks. We're not on paper sites anymore, so it's very easy for them to click what court they're going into. It changes it to a state statute automatically. So the town ordinances that don't translate to state statutes would probably be the only ones that need to be sent over to the Supreme Court or Mag Court to review. The DA will handle most cases. I'm very friendly terms with DA Macias. He's a resident of Macia. We talk all the time. The DA is under better leadership now and have been taking more cases. The public defenders would take cases if the defendant qualifies for that. So that saves town attorney representing the town side and then the public defender that the town of Macia has on their payroll. If the DA doesn't take it, my officers are prepared and qualified to handle their own cases. There's no issue here. We've done it here before. We'll do it in Mag Court. We've done it in the past. Codes, ACO, and zoning. I would not be opposed to staying here in the town of Macia. I know our codes and zoning are different from the county, just because Macia and the rules and ordinances we have. ACO calls don't make up a lot of calls. I don't know how many ACO calls you guys are able to dig up, but I'm fine with those staying here if there is a way. Animal control, sorry. So that'd be running at large, bites, care and maintenance, all that stuff. So, but I'll stand for any question.
I just going to go back to the weekend detention. Could you go over that
So
factors?
So say my graveyard guys at a certain establishment here in town where they spend a lot of their time, they arrest someone for any nature of criminal offense. They sit in jail. Friday would count as a day or half a day, Saturday and Sunday. Then we transport. So I have to take an officer off patrol or an SRO out of the schools to do a court transport so that they can be arraigned in front of the judge. If it went to Mag Court, which they've done in previous cases that we sent to Mag Court, Mag does Zoom meetings, phone calls, or they have an in-person judge that arraigns everyone in jail under a Mag arrest. And 85, 90% of the time they're ROR'd, which is released on their own reconnaissance. They're given a court date that you are to appear on this date, this time, and then that's when the official arraignment would happen, but at least they're seen. Our judge works Monday and Wednesday mostly. He does come in on Tuesdays, Thursdays if we need to, or if we need to schedule court on Friday, but most arraignments are Monday morning or Wednesday afternoon.
So with the municipal court here be able, I mean, if they were open to, they could arraign during the weekend.
If they would, yep. That would be a question.
And that would be cost savings to it.
Yes. Because you're looking at $120 compared to $340 or $60. I don't even know if it's still at $120 a day. 140. Oh, so it's got to be 140.
It's 104, it's gonna go to 120.
Oh, okay. So I was jumping myself. So it is going to go to 120, but still 104 a day is for prisoner cares.
In your time with the local with our marshal's office, has there been any point where they were done during the weekend by the sitting judge?
From what I can remember, the last one that came in on weekends was Judge Lionel Fritz. I never appeared in front of Judge Heinrich, so I don't know if he came in or
When he's substituting for him, he'll go to the court. He'll go to the jail.
Yeah, Fritz. Yeah, yes. Sorry. Alternate Judge Fritz told me he did go to the DC because someone was in there a little too long. So he arraigned someone.
I was gonna ask about that, aside from the monetary savings of allowing people in jail, some of us who are concerned about people sitting in jail,
Yep.
maybe ought to be released.
Yep.
And delete, so that idea that some visit jail on Friday night, not a chance.
So the Doña County Detention Center has agreements with the county and LCPD and state police that certain charges, they can ROR them and they give them the paperwork. You will go see a judge. If it doesn't fall under that category, then they do see a judge, but that's Saturday, Sunday. Usually they're out Saturday afternoon and Sunday afternoon.
Marshall, first of all, thank you for what you do.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
For the community. From a law enforcement perspective, do you see any downside of having the kinds of cases that you're involved in go to the magistrate court?
I see no downside. Like I said, I'm fine with all criminal cases going over there, and then traffic, animal control, and code staying here. I don't really see a downside whether it stays or whether it goes on our end.
Codes and zoning, I understand. Why animal control?
Good question. I really don't know Doñana County ordinance for animal control. But Mag Court may be up to speed on that as well, so that may be able to go to Mag Court as well. I know zoning and codes I would prefer to stay within town limits.
Why?
Just the nature of codes, and then to the judge's point, he hasn't seen many codes cases. My codes officer usually goes out there, addresses the issue, tells them you have a week, you have 5 days, you have 3 days. If he sees progress, then there's no citation. As long as they continue cleaning or keeping up with whatever they could have been cited for.
But wouldn't that be the same regardless of whether there is a citation or is
Yeah, yes.
One of my questions, and I'm not directing this at you, but I'm gonna put it out there, and somebody's gonna get up here and testify to the answer, is this idea of bifurcating, which I didn't realize was an option, keeping some stuff and setting stuff. If we keep some stuff, it looks to me that there will be very little in cost savings because you're still gonna have a whole court operation. So if the point is saving money, it would seem to me you're gonna wanna decide to either, like we always say, fish or cut bait.
Yeah.
And so that's something we're thinking about as we go along, if I'm correct about my analysis of the cost situation. But again, cost, I understand, is one factor and not the other. And I also, but I want to say, I see your officers out all the time in my neighborhood. I live close to Zia, and I see and hear those guys all the time, and ladies as well. And I do appreciate it.
But to the point, if all goes to Mag Court, we're fine with it. I don't see any downfall on that. If it all stays here, we're fine with it. I don't see any downfall on that. To my guys in my department.
I have some questions. So if you guys are sending them to magistrate, let's say you arrest one and it goes to magistrate and they're in jail, who pays that bill?
I have no idea. That's not part of my budget.
So if his officers arrest somebody and puts them in jail, who's in charge of that bill? Magistrates or the town seal?
Yes, the magistrate. That's something I'd have to look into. I have that as a note already.
Prisoner care's never been in the Macias or the marshal's budget.
Whose budget does it go under?
Prisoner care is under corrections.
The court.
It's under corrections.
Corrections. Okay, my next question is if you go to magistrate,
Yeah, and 33 is the corrections. It's not the one.
okay. They go to magistrate, do they represent themselves or do we go get attorney?
So depending on what the defendant picks, if he wants to get an attorney and depending on the case or the charge, then that's where the DA says, yes, we'll pick it up, or it's going to be an officer tried.
How many times have your officers actually came into court to represent for themselves?
I can't tell you the number on that one, but I know that they do it on traffic tickets all the time.
Do they call for attorney advice?
Not to my knowledge.
Do we know?
Mr. Cabello could probably answer that. He's the one that deals with code. All representation here at the time.
Mr. Cabello, will you identify yourself in the?
Sure. Robert Cabello with Minnet. Officers have called me for advice. I've never charged them for just advice if they ask for a traffic ticket. I just give them the advice. If they have a question about something that's happened in court or a statute or an ordinance, I just give them the advice over the phone. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Well, I was curious because I know you said the invoices every time we call, there's a call line on an invoice. So I'm just kind of curious, like how often are we calling you guys to come in for a court hearing here in the town of Mesilla that maybe our marshals can do it on their own without getting, or do they always have to get legal opinion?
So they don't always have to get a legal opinion. In fact, well, I'm not giving them advice since I'm the prosecutor. What I'm doing is I'm either prepping them for a case.
But it costs the town to see it, right?
Yeah, I would charge them for the case. That would, or you know,
And
again,
how often does that happen?
I mean, at least once or twice per, if it's a DUI case, once or twice. If it's not a DUI case, if it's something more simple, and most of my cases are DUI cases. So those are approximate numbers. I don't really have a number. I would have to look at the actual invoices to know. But
Can we get those numbers? Because I'm just curious, because if we go to magistrate and they're calling for, you know, if the officer has to go to court or comes back again with that bill back on the budget.
If we go to mag court and the DA picks it up, we'll be communicating
That's
with the DA.
if the DA picks it.
well, the,
DA doesn't, once the DA doesn't, wouldn't it be the same as if they went to Municipal court? I mean, it's not a difference in cost, is what I'm saying. It's the same cost.
the DA has to pick up DUIs. There can't be officer prosecuted DUIs. I mean, you can't have those. I mean, so no matter what, if you get a DUI, it's going to be, and I think that might be true of domestic violence cases, but those are already going to be, if you're getting domestic violence, even if you have an ordinance here, and I forget if there is or not, because I haven't had any cases here, is you want to go under the state statute because you get the full time of probation for like the, you know, for the treatment for domestic violence, which is like, it takes about a year. Heck, it takes about like 3 months just to get into a class sometimes, depending on how many vendors they have for those classes.
What about speeding, disorderlies, things like that?
I don't handle those unless it's like attached to a DUI.
So you don't typically get involved in those kinds of.
The only time I ever do that is if an officer calls me and asks me about something, but then I'm not charging them because I'm not even asking them about the name of the person on the case. I'm just giving them the advice, and the officers know that they can call me. They have some questions about ordinances, statutes, law stuff. I give out my number freely to the officers, so I try to make myself available. In fact, I'm going to be giving the officers not part of that sort of cost, but or a particular case. But I will be giving the officers sort of classes, like as far as later this month, one for like daytime officers, how to like prosecute cases on their own, and then one like at night, like around 7 o'clock, to get some of the night shift officers to give them the same sort of advice, legal advice, questions about their ordinances, things that I can help them with, prepare them for, so they can do their own trials. Did I answer your question?
Well, a little bit, because you said you're preparing them, but they're calling for opinions. It's,
But member of the committee, Garcia, what I also want to note is on the attorney invoices as they're provided, especially by Minat Springer, they're extremely detailed.
right.
So when I say they're detailed, it's not just calls that are happening, and it's not just calls with the officers. There's calls that happen with the judge. There's calls that happen with the court clerk. There's correspondence that's built by all about. There's cases that are being reviewed and information that's being gathered. So, and the time that's being put in there. So it's not just phone calls by the officers or things that are done by the officers for the town. There's a lot that actually comes from the information and the judges, from the court itself, and putting together that correspondence. So just for clarification. And the one thing that I will say, and I'm sorry to interrupt on that thought, is that in the transparency of the billing that happened or that happens between our previous attorney and our current attorney, it's night and day. You see it fully broken down on what happens by specific line items, each and every billing. Before, it wasn't that detailed by any means. It was a one-pager that was paid. So I just want that to be fully clear on all of that as well.
It comes back to, we're back to the budget number again. It's not going to cut down very much because the DA, like they said, the DA has to pick it up. If the DA does not pick it up, what happens?
So,
Well, it comes back to it
so,
again.
okay, so the question is for me, like, the DA doesn't pick up what kind of case are we talking about?
Well, let's say speeding ticket,
Okay, well, then the officer can prosecute that case on their own.
but if you need to prepare them, who's gonna prepare them if they need to get prepared?
Well, I mean, I'll talk to the officer. I mean, I'll certainly help him prepare him if he needs that help. Assuming the DA doesn't help him. I mean, what I was,
But that's gonna be a fee for the town, correct?
if they're asking me, for like a lot of substantial help, more than just a phone call, I'll give them some help and I'll actually put it on, and I do bill in 6-minute intervals, like a standard, attorney invoices. If,
Yeah, so we're gonna get charged.
yes,
Okay, thank you.
If, as Ann said, if the officer needs assistance, but I suspect that these officers can prosecute speeding tickets without much legal assistance.
I imagine they could. I mean,
Or do they? I mean, they do it now, right?
they're doing it now, and I'm not seeing those cases. The only time I have speeding tickets, traffic violations, moving violations, is if they're attached to the DUI. I don't have.
If I may,
I just
Mr.
use the
Chair,
speeding one as a,
I'd like to offer something just for a broad.
The chair
Broad-
recognizes Mr. Young, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I apologize. Just because I think we're getting lost in the weeds on the kind of the big picture of how this works. Our firm is assigned criminal prosecution cases. So when there is a DUI or a case in which a defendant has legal counsel assigned to him through the public defender program that we have, or he has his own attorney, that's when we get looped in generally. So basically those two categories. In some weird circumstances that don't happen very often, we open a file. So we have a file name, and each file gets invoiced from our office at the end of every month. And so it's relating to basically those two types of categories. So if anything happens the way our practice is, and this is in open record because our contract's approved when we bid on it, we bill in 0.2 or 0.1 increments, 6-minute. I mean, as attorneys, you all are very familiar with how that works. And so every item, every time entry that we have lays out what we've done. Phone call with officer, review, 20 hours of footage, because sometimes that is what comes in on a DUI, especially when somebody's been incarcerated over the course of 3 nights, because oftentimes somebody who's sitting in jail overnight might actually make a statement that's incriminating that makes it easy to reach a decision there. So just to lay that in context, we're not getting random calls under the general file for the town of Mesilla from an officer saying, hey, what do I do about this guy over here? I pulled him over for speeding, and then we send a bill for 1 hour. That's not how we operate. We bill under particular cases that we've opened based on the referral from the marshal's office and the courts based on those particular categories that have occurred. So hopefully that was a long-winded but helpful explanation.
I have a quick question. So we can get copies of the invoices or we can't?
So copies of invoices you can have a redacted invoice which only has the number at the end. Everything that's the way that we bill, and this is you write out what you've done for the entity, the advice you've given, or the work that you've done. Those are protected by 2 types of privilege: the attorney-client privilege and the attorney work product privilege. Only the governing body has the authority to waive that. I never counsel my clients to waive their attorney-client privilege.
So I asked for HIPAA requested on it, and I didn't receive it. Any attorney voices cannot be disclosed due to attorney-client privileges as information pertains to the attorney work and production.
That's the privilege. That is the basis for not turning over the invoices. But you can send, and that's all in the budget.
Yeah, but they can send
breakdowns.
it, correct?
We can absolutely send out a category that says file town of Mesilla versus this person, this amount of money.
Okay.
And I'd like to add, in my invoices, again, it's mostly other DUI cases. I mean, I've had other cases before from Mesilla. I can guarantee you they're not all phone calls or emails. Most of my invoices are having to review material that I get, research, responding to actual pleadings, motions, practice, things like that.
I don't think anybody's questioning how you're billing and what you're billing. And I totally get it. I totally get that you would do some free calls on the side because it would take you more time to write down the entry than it would to give the advice to live on with your life. I think the real thing that, and correct me, I'm not meaning to speak for you, but that she's looking at, and I'm looking at, we're all thinking about is, what of these expenses are gonna go away and which are to stay? And so with respect to, and I've kind of got it, what, if I understand what you told us, is that the DUI stuff is gonna go away because the DA's office is gonna pick up those. And we think the DA's office is gonna pick up the domestic abuse, and that is the vast majority of what you guys are doing. And when we start talking about our other kinds of things, the speeding, the disorderly, what, that you mentioned, what I'm hearing, and I think maybe our officer to scare you, Marshall. Are you using the active Marshall?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I not there that. My last encounter with Marshall was Enrique Saavedra. So that's how and I used to represent New Mexico State University, and I had a police department, so I'm used to representing the officers. And they've never called me for advice on prosecuting these small kinds of things, because I did it all the time, they knew way more than I did about it. So they didn't call me, they might call me and tell me what's going on, so that I can heads up, but, so I'm anticipating what you're saying, that you're the vast majority of the time, ordinary kinds of things you guys do, you do without any legal assistance.
Yes, ma'am. And then I sent my animal control officer / coach, Officer Garcia, to a court testimony class that Deming PD put on for free. It was a week. He brought back a lot of knowledge. So once that pops up again, it's fairly inexpensive for me to send officers to Deming. Or if we get enough down here, they put one on down here for all the surrounding agencies.
One more question. When you do any training, did you do like an active shooting training class
Active shooting training.
or something like that back in May?
Who was it for? Do you know who it was for?
Don't know. That's why I'm asking you. Was there a training that was done?
My May of this year?
Mm-hmm. Or April?
My SROs may have gone over protocol with the schools. The last major one we did was with Valor Tactical under Enrique Marshall and Salas, which was probably 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah, because I saw in their budget that it was taken out of the court funds, $1,000 for a class. Do you have any idea?
No, ma'am.
Just curious.
The last training that we did in the court aspect would be with former town lawyer Cervantes under the previous mayor. But I don't know if he charged or who that budget was taken out of.
Okay, I'll find it. I'll bring it back to you. Oh, here it is. Traveling conference, active shooting training.
Oh, that must have been something they went to. I didn't go to it.
When was that? I'll look into it.
Can I see it?
Yeah. It's one highlight. The two pink ones are coming out of the courts. And one of them I think is your officers too.
Yeah, that shouldn't come out of the courts. I coded it under mine. The reimbursement was when Deputy Reyes sent first class mail for a new program we're getting. And Valor Tactical, we barely did something with them this weekend, but I haven't paid any bills on that one. So it should have been coded out of my budget.
Take it from you.
Are there any other questions of Marcia?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there another person that wants to provide testimony?
I think it would be in order to hear from the community residents for their input, just to get a good feel this community that is here present. So I would defer to anyone who would like to speak right now.
So if you were duly sworn in, you can step up to the mic to identify yourself. Whoever wants to speak.
I'll go first.
All right. And state your name and then answer the question if you were duly sworn in. And then
Veronica Garcia, and I have been sworn in. So I understand why we're doing what we're doing. So I requested the budget back from 2022 to present. I understand it's costing a lot and everything on there, but the checks and balances are not matching at all. I can tell you that. Ms. Ramona, we pulled out the case from the budget for 2023. 2023 for let's do 2023. We pulled out that one. The cash evaluation was 24,543. Ramona went ahead, worked her time and everything like that. That number does not match what the auditor had found on it. The numbers aren't matching. I honestly think what we need to do is actually get checks and balances are not matching whatsoever. Even the $1,000 that I was just talking about earlier, that's just a tiny one. They're not. We need to first go back and research more of why it's not checks and balances. Same thing when I said about the reversement payments. You know, if someone gets a $1,000 bond, Ramona goes picks. We hear them from the court. The court says, this is an example, 500. The town of Mesilla has to reverse them 500. So the balance should be 0, correct? We pull up that patient, talking about work now. We pull up that client's name on, well, guess what? It's still at 500. Why is it still at 500? There's a stack of them in there of reverse payments. Why is it being like that? So how is that budgeting to what they're making and what they're losing? So I honestly strongly agree that we need to go back and see what the checks and balances are. I'll say it again, they're not matching. And it's not by a little. You know, she's taking the time. I said this at the last board meeting back in May. They're not matching. Something's going on. So I pulled up 2. I asked her to pull up 2 for me about the reverse payments. There's one in January and there's one in August, just recently. My concern is, like I said before, someone comes in, I come in, I don't know any of this. Well, this client has a $500 balance. I'm going to go, we're going to go get them. What's going to happen? He's going to pull out his receipts. He's going to show everything. It's at 0. Now we're going to have to reimburse that person, or they can sue the town of Mesilla for it because their balance should be 0. We're on a warrant for an outstanding balance that never been paid when it should have been 0. Do you see what I'm getting? I honestly strongly say we have to go through it and see the exact dollar amount. Are they losing money, or exactly how much money are they losing? It's a rough estimate of the 26,000, what Mayor Hernandez had said. But what's going on? I understand there shouldn't be a quota, but why are our tickets going down? I think we went back 5 years and we were like at 4,000 some tickets. Now we're down to not even 1,000. What's going on? You know, a letter Judge Fritz wrote of an incident, and I'll pass it to the marshal about it. You know, like I understand he says they're out around patrolling. I understand there's not a quota. Personally, for myself, I'll sit there Friday. I won't see them. You can't function without the marshal's department for the court. How do you expect the court? Once again, checks and balances. What's going to happen if it gets involved? Checks and balances. I advise the rest of the committee, Ask them for the finances. Ask the court for their finances. Come and sit here with the courts. Ask the town of Mesilla for their numbers. Ask the courts for the numbers. They do not match. And I'm not even done looking at it. And I worked with Ramona for like, what, a week? About a week already. Off and on, 2 days. Those two are the smallest ones. I'm suggesting to the committee, get the numbers from the town hall, get the numbers what the courts have, and study them. They do not match. That's all I have to say.
Town's finances audited?
Audited on a yearly basis. And
That
I
was,
think- I
that
think
was
that-
for audit.
I think that just to touch on a couple of things here, and I think Marshall can touch on a little bit more as well. When you talk about the number of tickets 5 years ago, we did have Stone Garden funding at that point in time as well. So that kind of comes into play a little bit with the number of tickets being there. So, I mean, he can talk more on that more than me. But I know that was part of a discussion that we've had. And the one thing that I will point out, Ms. Garcia, is that, and I'll be pointed and forward in this, is that you were a trustee at one point in time as well. So you dealt with budgets. You know that this issue with the court and reporting has been an issue for quite a while. And I know that you're aware of it because it was going on when you're there. Luckily, we figured out what the issue is, and we're working with Tyler to get that issue fixed. All the money is there. It's been audited, and the money is definitely there. It's in the accounts. It's just not showing in the reporting for whatever reason. So we're working with Tyler Systems to get that fixed.
But
And
it doesn't match.
Gloria
It should
is
still
doing
match, so no matter what coding you use, they should still match. The numbers
so
should
the-
they should
the
never
bank-
change.
the bank accounts show the amounts and reconcile fully, and that's everything that's been audited has all of that information. So, but the reporting that is provided through the system is not pulling the right information. So yes, there is an issue, and it's a known issue that's been there for years, but we are in the process of fixing that.
Well, here's one of the cases, and I'll more than happy to find it to you. There's no way this person can have a $539 balance when you refunded her $539. That's not checking balances.
That's what I'm telling you, though, is that there's an issue, a known issue in the system that we're working with the system administrator for to fix this.
They're reversing the payment. You're reversing the payment.
I'm just stating what we're working on.
We have it on record. The payments are being reversed to make a balance, to make it to get balanced. If you'd like to hear the recording, I'll be more than happy to present the recording. But the balances are not there. They reverse a payment so it can be balanced.
Doesn't make sense. Something I'll look into one way or the other, but just as it's been asked by
That's what I'm
the
saying. You can't-
member Heinrich
you can't
here,
give-
is that
you can't
the
give an
asking
accurate
about a balance on audits being completed. We do go through an auditing process year after year after year. So that every year we go through an auditing process, and it does include the courts fully.
It's still not being balanced. It's not an accurate number that you're giving the courts, is what I'm telling you. No, it's not balanced. It makes it balanced when you reverse a payment. So it washes, it balances. So what I'm telling you now is, if we're gonna go this route, and you went in and people have balances, I'll say it again, you're gonna get Mesilla into trouble. When you go arrest someone for an outstanding balance, we're back to the same situation. All I'm asking is, and I'll say it again, you've got to get the numbers from here, the numbers from the court, and sit with them. The numbers do not match.
Great. We'll work on that.
I asked that for last time, and it hasn't.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody else who would like to speak? If so, please state your name and answer if you were duly sworn in.
Mary Lucero, I am here from Mesilla, and yes, I was sworn in. I just have a couple of things to say. First, I believe that our court system should stay, because all I'm hearing is that they've already sent tickets and DWIs and stuff to magistrate, but the budget is still the same. I haven't seen it. I don't know what it says, but from what I'm hearing from everybody, the budget's still the same, and they're sending people to magistrate anyway. So there's no reason to get rid of our municipality. I think it's very important for people to be held accountable in its own town. Regardless of the budget, I do see a problem that there's a lot of attorney fees that I think that our administration has to work on. Maybe don't call them as much, or I don't know, that something's got to give. But I don't think that problem has to do with the municipality court here, and I really think it needs to stay. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else want to speak? Please come forward.
That's okay, right?
Did you want to speak? Yeah.
So are we supposed to make a recommendation tonight? Or how does this work?
Fill it. You have enough information.
Yeah, we'll go over that after.
I'm just trying to make good use of our time here.
Okay.
This is what you want this?
Please.
My turn?
Yep.
And would you please state your name and whether you've been duly sworn in or not?
My name is Henry DiMatteo, and I'm the presiding judge for the town. So,
And you've been sworn in?
I have.
Yeah, thank you.
I have. Let me begin by there's many problems. Every court has problems. We have, from a philosophical standpoint, I feel I'm pretty qualified to do the job. I'm from this area. I went to college here. I have more degrees than the thermometer in Phoenix. To include a PhD, my actual experience is in management and accounting. I was a police officer for 35 years at all levels. I know how to run a police department. To Ms. Veronica's point, I ran the budget for about 3 years. $400 million, balances almost to the penny. Cannot tell me it can't be done. But I like pictures. So, philosophically, we have a court here, and a lot of people fought for this court. So we have to be very careful what we do, because it's like a watch. You start turning one gear and you don't know what happens to all the rest of the gears. I was the alternate judge under Lionel Fritz, rest in peace. I know the process. I'm very concerned about ethics. I'm very concerned about liability. I understand all those concepts. I've lived them. But you have a very good system here. It has its problems, as do all of them. Now, one, you're blessed with a good operation. We are blessed with Ms. Ramona, who is a great administrative assistant. We're blessed with the attorneys that we have retained. We are blessed with the defense counsel who fight vigorously. But there's a process, and it costs money. It costs money. Now, I did this the last time. Let me show you, let me explain this with my model here as like a little, just a little visual, if you will. I like pictures. This is our system. At the point, at the tip of the spear is public safety. And I don't want to mention revenue generation. I don't want to mention quotas. I don't want to mention anything. But you've got law enforcement, fire, codes, animal control. I mean, you've got all these areas involved in enforcement. I call balls and strikes. I only call what they bring me. I don't solicit business. I have no authority, and it's not my purview. I'm a judge. I'm worried about fairness. I don't even look at the case until it's time because I don't want to bias myself. But I do know the process. I thank God every day I'm not an attorney. Sorry. But nonetheless, it's an important position. The marshals have taken somebody's liberty away from them. One of our most important rights to be free, and they've compromised it. Well, by God, they better play by the rules, because if they don't, if one little problem exists, person goes free. Because I know what vicarious liability is. I know what punitive and exemplary damages are. Now, with this pen, further up the chain where we have the judiciary. The judiciary can only start from when we get the ink, when we get the pen. And then, of course, we've got government who kind of controls everything. Fortunately, I hold people to standard. If you don't have probable cause, you violated that Fourth Amendment. If that person wants them to have an attorney, there's a process to get them the attorney. They deserve an attorney by the Constitution. Because I can tell you, Mr. Cabello is coming in with both barrels blazing. But fortunately, we have Mark Gamotes, who is our public defender, and he's very, very good. So it's a great balance. Now, having studied this a little bit, probably courts represent between 1% to 3% of the budget, generally speaking. There's three things that are going to kill us: bias, corruption, and government oversight, which we're treading waters real close here. Because I don't like to talk money. I'm not worried about money. I'm worried about fairness. I'm worried about justice. I don't care. However, we're not doing this for our health. So we've got to generate some funds. And as been asserted here tonight, well, I was always taught with the police department in El Paso, the rate of the pack is determined by the rate of the leader. And we have the data. I can graph it for you. From 19 to 25, your line goes down. Now, the purpose is not to generate revenue. The purpose is to educate. But in so doing, revenue is generated. I know in El Paso, it's the third area of generated revenue behind property and sales tax. We depend on the officers to come in with tickets. We call them contacts. Did you educate them? Did you have to write the citation? Is there any other way? But we have a community court with the force of law here, so we got to take it serious. But I can make a very strong argument, very strong, almost convincing beyond a doubt, that the marshal, the organization, is not producing. I don't care. He runs his show. But he is one of the principal components of revenue for the town of Mesilla. And we can show it. We can show it on a monthly, weekly basis, how productivity has diminished. Well, you can enter that red area. It's just the way it goes. So, you have to take the job serious. I've got certain requirements in terms of the process, but I'm very accommodating to the judges, to the attorneys. Pick your date. Pick your date. You guys are busy. I'm a farmer down here in Mesilla. Pick a date. I'll be here. We'll just stop the John Deere and we'll come to court. No problems. But in order to represent the town of Mesilla and the state of New Mexico, you have to allow for a certain latitude by the retained counsel. If you are going to accuse someone, then if they want attorney and they are approved, they should get good counsel. It's the nature of the game. So we really got to worry about sending stuff to magistrate court because we lose control. If someone comes to me, I may know them. I may ask why. Even with a minor, I'll ask them, who pays your insurance? Well, my dad. So really, I'm punishing your dad. I'm not punishing you. Because the dad's going to pay the fine. Yeah, well, then you're shaming your family. The point is well made. The point is well taken. There are criminal cases submitted by the Marshals organization. They're substandard. Their evidence cannot be admitted in a court of law. It has to be removed. The court case has to be dismissed. We have the privilege of Mr. Cabello, who will see it as well, and he'll say, you know what, we're not going to proceed with this because he knows why, and I know why. But when he can go on, we'll go on. But I'm like the umpire. I'm calling balls and strikes. Either you had the license or you didn't. Now, I'm reluctant on a lot of cases because I have a certain latitude. I don't like community services. I don't believe that sweeping up a street is gonna rehabilitate the drug offender. Is gonna make the person not go to a bar. I've been on the streets. I know what these officers are facing. But I also know productivity. And I know how to manage an organization. I've never been asked. It's not on my business, and I would never offer it unless asked to do so. But there's things that can be done. The problem is you want to stay out of the murky waters of revenue generation. But that's what it is. I mean, it's the old lipstick and a pig type deal. Officers come to my house. I just live here by the school. They come to my house on graveyards and they ask for a warrant to be signed. They ask for a certain document. I said, no, you ain't got it. Well, what's wrong? Not my job. My job is to preserve the fairness. And I cannot, with good conscience, sign this document compromising this person's Fourth Amendment. I'm not going to do it. Now, the marshal does have some problems with case presentation, but he's got the remedy right there because he's got excellent, experienced people that can review cases. But Cabello is not doing this for his health, his time, his expertise. We don't pay him for what he does. We pay him for what he knows how to do. And it costs money. But again, I liken this to a garden hose, if you will. Everybody has a garden hose. And this is a simple input-output workflow model. I didn't invent this. I know you think I did. But there's a choke point right here. It's affecting everything. It's affecting the whole system. That choke point, I would submit, is the Municipal Marshal's office. Yes, you see them. And they tell me, there's sometimes it's slow. It's never slow. You just got to hunt deeper. There's crime. The marshal mentioned 300 some odd cases. And that's a very commendable operational caseload for one unit in El Paso. Now, we're not El Paso, but the job and the responsibility is the same. I am always available to anybody at any point in time. People know where I live. To the defendants, I give my personal cell number. Call me. You got problems, call me. So in accounting, I want to be what they call value-added activity. And I think I think we're getting there. And with the mayor's efforts in many areas, he's getting us there as well. But we got the problems. And I think Ms. Veronica pointed out, you can't just have an audit. It's got to be a deep audit, and it's got to be an impersonal audit. Because the Attorney General is going to come here, and they're not going to be so nice. They're going to tell Ms. Gloria, you're sitting in my chair. And by the way, that felony indictment's going to have your name on it. That type of stuff. Malfeasance, misfeasance, will be not tolerated. I know, for example, that the former judge who left in lieu of termination or removal was asked to come back. That doesn't pass a smell test. I'm not so easy to remove, but it's possible. So as a result, that is deception. That is a lie if it's denied. Maybe some possibilities were being explored. However, attorneys, the marshal, or I believe Cabello, mentioned about the appeal process. And I've had a few cases appeal to the district court. And you know what they have come back with? How many have been returned? 0. Why? Because we're doing a good job. We don't violate people's rights. But I only decide, I only bring a decision on those things that are brought to me. I can't go out. People come up to me and they tell me, this is happening on our street, and this is happening. And I said, look, Marshal's right there. Your remedy is right there. Well, this officer did this and he said that. Well, that's too bad. But your remedy is not here. Your remedy is over there. I was a professor in the criminal justice for 20 years, as well as being a police officer, a commander at night, at the same time on graveyards. Lots of kids to feed. So I know stress, and I understand the responsibilities. But at the same time, we cannot violate the process. The process costs time, costs money. I do not want our attorney Cabello to come in unprepared. So I'm willing to provide a continuance so that he can prepare. For example, he was provided a bunch of continuance type motions that had to be reviewed. Well, he's not going to review them here, and we just continued the case so that he can have time to review them. Because if you violate certain processes, you basically violate a person's rights. Now, they come in without an attorney, and I act in their behalf to ensure fairness. But no one in here can make more mistakes than I have. I'm telling you, okay? But at the same time, when we deal with magistrate court, it's a little different ballgame. They may not be as receptive to our needs as possible. And I don't think that many cases, as compared to Mesilla Municipal Court, are being referred to as opposed to the MAG Court. I don't think there's that many. If people get angry, if officers get disturbed, too bad. Give me a good case. Provide the right evidence. Look, in our system, it's probably one of the oldest systems in the world. You got to answer two questions. Yes. One is, was the evidence gathered according to a certain acceptable process? It's got to be answered yes. And then the second question is, does it imply or implicate the defendant? If either one of those questions are answered no, they're out of there. Yes, ma'am.
So are you suggesting that magistrate court somehow would provide the same due process and the same opportunities for both sides to have a fair?
It would be the same process, but not tailored as easy. A magistrate judge will have the latitude of saying, no, Mr. Cabello or the DA, we're here. We're going to go with this case. Mr. Defense Counsel, if you're not ready, too bad. Who suffers? The defendant. In this court, well, yes, it can happen in district court. I've seen it happen. I've seen it happen in federal court. Normally by fault of the defense or prosecution. Because they got to be ready, and it takes time. Attorneys work on time schedule. Remember, we pay them for what they know how to do, not for what they do. So, magistrate court is not going to be as receptive as this court is. Even though this has a force of law, it does have a certain personal community touch to it. If Mrs. Kruger comes into the court and wants to talk to me about whatever, she knows me, I know her, and we'll talk. Not so at magistrate.
Well, I guess that does concern me as a lawyer hearing about attorney and communication.
Yes, ma'am.
The defendant calling and having your phone number, being able to call that doesn't seem right to me.
Well, it can border on that, but you know, Cabello will be the first one. He'll say, I'll call him to the bench, and he'll relate something, but he will preface his remarks by saying, is this off the record? Is that?
Let me throw in a comment here along the same lines. When you just said, I act on their behalf, meaning the defendants, to ensure fairness. To me, the judge's role is to make a decision based on the facts as presented to them, and not to represent one party or the other.
But if the facts violate the rights of the defendant, you cannot admit the evidence.
That's a separate question.
Well, but it's related, because if you admit that evidence, it taints or forces the case in a particular direction. So everything has got to be down the line. I'm just sorry, but it's not that we're biased towards, and I'm not opposed to sanctioning people. But again, we're dealing with serious misdemeanors as well as parking citations. But I can assure you, and you know here, there are more town code violations, and it's just not being addressed. I'm probably guilty myself. However, the present town codes officer is very energetic, but he's not trained. And that training is reflected in case presentation. It's just the nature of the game. But before you do something, I mean, the officers have to be trained. And the marshal's got a obligation that matches any other city in the United States. Police work is police work. The liabilities and the obligations are the same. Now, with respect to the court, it's any concern by this committee is easily remedied. Now, the procedure says you must see this person within 3 days. We can do it. The reason magistrates do that, video, teleconference, whatever it is to save money. You got to spend money to make money. But this court can run in the black. Easy.
When's the last time it did that?
Yes, I don't know. I can just tell you from the data composed by the administrative assistant, it's been a while. Because now remember, I'm talking strictly about citations. Misdemeanor offenses. Town code violations. Animal control. There's a problem with animal control. But you know what? He's one guy. He's not trained. He makes mistakes. I will not allow a mistake at the expense of the defendant. Ethically, you can't do that.
You've had a number of criticisms of the marshal's office. Animal control's not trained. The marshal is not producing. Have you ever sat down and talked with him about
No.
your concerns about his office?
No.
Why not?
He hasn't asked me. He is a competent person. But I can assure you that when there's a problem in El Paso, the chief doesn't come to the sergeant. He doesn't come to the lieutenant. He comes to me. And so as a result, I better have some answers. He runs his job the best way he can with the resources he has. As a lieutenant, I had 90 people on a shift downtown. I got more things to do. He doesn't have that. He is only as good as you allow him to be, or the Messiah allows him to be. And there's many, many responsibilities. Sure, he can pull that school resource officer away from Zia until we have a shooting. You know what I mean? So, he's playing that tightrope game. We're not here to crucify the Messiah marshals. But at the same time, the problems of this court, if there are any, are easily remedied. But it's going to take something a little bit more than this court can do. It's nice, the mayor says, come to my office, we need to talk. Or he comes to my office, let's talk, I'm here. He doesn't have to go to magistrate court. He doesn't have to make an appointment with the DA. He contacts Mr. Cabello, done. It's nice. He deserves that type of cooperation. So we would be, I think incrementally, it would be better to tweak as opposed to just destroy and upset the community with a lot of we don't know what's going to happen. Fortunately, like the mayor said, we can always go back, but I doubt that will ever happen. We went through a process to get this court. We need to protect it. And so far, the mayor's done a good job. You know, he's only got a small budget. And typical public sector, you always have limited resources. Well, let's raise taxes, you know, that type of stuff. So, on the one hand, you've got to hold people accountable. And I run IRS, inspection ready status. I will come to Ms. Ramona and I will say, how much money did you collect on May 21st? She'll go, well, we didn't, no, of 24. She'll look it up. She'll say, I collected this much. What did you do with it? Well, I gave it to so-and-so. How do I know? Well, here she accepted. Here's the receipt. Here's her initials or her signature. So because Ms. Ramona, I don't even want the appearance of impropriety. If the mayor comes and says, well, you're not collecting enough money, show me where. Show me where, because Ms. Ramona is she's kind of sticky about stuff like this. She's kind of a numbers person. But at the same time, the obligation is to fairness. And we will not even appear as though we are engaged in any appearance of impropriety. I fear that the most. And fortunately, all the mistakes I've ever made in life, which have been a few, I'm sure we could get good testimony to that, have brought me to this point. So, let me open it to the floor for any questions. You know, you have to allow for people to do their job. If the marshal is busy, I stay out of the way because he's busy. When work is occurring, stay out of the way. If Cabello comes to me and says, I need more time to review this motion, well, you know, he's not doing it because he's trying to buy a boat. He's doing it out of his obligation to properly represent the town of Mesilla. You got to take that into consideration. It costs money. But I can assure you, Mr. Cabello will be the first to say, we don't have a case. We ain't got it. Because defense counsel might be a little bit more adamant. May say, look, I'm here, I'm prepared, let's go today. So Mr. Cabello comes up with a strong argument. In other words, it's that balanced approach. Why? Because we don't want to incur any liability. We don't want to violate anybody's rights. Remember, what are the Bill of Rights for? The Bill of Rights are to protect us from an overzealous government. That's where I come in. And I've had many, many officers come to my house with a search warrant. I'm sorry, you don't have it. Well, what's wrong with it? It's not my job. My job is to approve it. When they go rework it, bring it back. You know, some of the cases that have been poorly represented by the marshal's office, you know, I blame not so much the officer, but the marshal has two great detectives that could review that case. And they would spot the deficiencies. If a blind man, the judge can see it, they can see it.
Judge, I have some questions for you.
I'm easy to get along with, but I'm not easy. And I should not be. Mayor, proceed.
You know, number one, I want to say that I appreciate your service, especially as a law enforcement officer, previous retired law enforcement officer. I
Thank
will
you.
say that, you know, so I do appreciate that more than anything. I think that some of the things that you personally have noted is, you know, working for El Paso, and working for that community and being in charge of that community, a community of millions of people compared to a community of 2,800 people. So apples and oranges in my respect on that. But my question as well to you specifically is you mentioned a lot of training deficiencies that are happening within the Marshal's Department, but how often have you gone to training for judicial review or any type of updates on state statute? Or do you have Ramona as your court clerk attend any of those trainings to fill you in? Or do you have access to that readily available?
Yes, no, maybe so in the future. I don't know. I have attended state mandated judiciary training. I know the process already. I have a mentor, Judge Filosa, magistrate or municipal Las Cruces, and I call him and I ask him about cases. He'll say, "You're right on the money." And I will be sending our illustrious Miss Ramona to hopefully a clerical administrative school as a matter of professional development. We're only as good as she is. So it's real important. Most of this is mandated. I may learn some, I may not. I have 10 years of testimony as a detective in all variety of cases. I know liability. I know budgeting. I know management. And as a result, you can't fool me.
So,
But I'm sorry, Mayor, I look to the whole picture. And I will not compromise the town of Mesilla because you have placed your interest and your trust in me. And so I am very reluctant. But somebody here, come, tell me how to do it better. We'll do it. If it works, we're coachable. This Miss Ramona is very coachable. So, we're just lucky to have this system, which we want to be very careful about compromising.
And I think that brings up the biggest point in that question is because in the first part of your conversation, you specifically mentioned how you don't like to do community service. You don't believe in community service and that shouldn't be happening. Did I understand that correctly?
In the punishment phase, in the sentencing phase, that is an option judges have. Donations, counseling, interlock, drug testing, encounter groups. The question I have, is it value-added activity for the person that, for whatever misdemeanor, is sweeping the plaza going to be the epiphany he needs? I just don't see it.
So with that,
And there's a controversy about that.
and I'm sorry to interrupt you on
That's okay.
With that in mind, so that you're
I'm married.
very familiar with NMSA 1978, Section 68102, that talks about penalties for first DWI convictions.
Yeah.
Where 24 hours of community service is mandatory.
I have those guidelines in my office. I have them before me when I deal with one.
And you've been following that.
This is not uniformly applied. I don't believe in the interlock. Criminals will do what they have to do to divert the process. So you have to go with what you can. But if given the choice, then what's best for the defendant? If the defendant shows me they have repented, if the defendant shows me a certain contriteness about them, then maybe we can use a little latitude. We do look at their record once we get to that point. But see, I would be less than what I would call ethical if I were to look through his file first. Let's decide the issue. Sorry. Let's decide the issue. But I think everyone, specifically the administrative assistant, we're getting premium service for cut rate prices. I know the code. My salary isn't incredible, 15,000 a year. I'm telling you what, it's like winning the lottery. So I'm not doing this for the salary. I got plenty of work to do on the farm. And I'm just blessed with my health to support the mayor. I'm not his yes man. He doesn't want one. I will give him options. Some of them is do nothing, let it solve itself, or do this, do this, do that. Now that we've convened this committee, this is a great problem-solving area. And the nice thing is, everyone here is receptive. Even Veronica says, show me. Well, you know what? We're either going to show her or we're going to show a grand jury. We're going to show her or we're going to show an IRS inspector or auditor. We're going to show her or a state attorney general's auditor. I'm telling you, you don't want to go through a federal consent decree. So the best pain is avoidance. There are always questions in budgeting, but you've got to be able to answer that. Now, as a police director of budgeting, yes, we had all sorts of checks and balances inside, internally and externally, all the way to the mayor's office. So, it wasn't like we were balancing without remedy or not balancing. We found it. But I think those are other issues. The thing I would most tell everyone in the committee is that we have to have an attitude of gratitude for what we have. I don't agree with Mr. Cabello a lot. I don't like his approach. I don't like this, but you know what? You're getting your money's worth. Mr. Gamotes, he just does a good job. The officers, you can tell the experienced officers from the non-experienced officers. They come in, they're able to answer the questions. But I've had some cases by other officers that is just blatantly obvious that this is a faulty case. Yeah, a lot of smoke, but we don't deal with smoke. Are there any other questions, comments, or confessions? Mr. Cabello, do you have anything to add? We're not on the clock right now. Okay. Just wondering. Okay, very good. I just want to open myself. I'm more than transparent. I'm Casper the Ghost transparent. Okay, thank you, Judge. Okay. May I be excused? Are we close to adjourning?
Not quite. We have an agenda.
We'll see, Judge.
Is there anybody else then? Seeing nobody come forward, I think we can move on to the next item.
We need to close public hearing.
Okay, thank you. We're getting to that, yeah. So, sorry. I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing to return back to our meeting.
And Mr. Chair, I'll make that motion. Mr. Chair, I'll make that motion. To
Okay,
close
the
public
mayor moves. I need a second.
A second.
Ms. Ellis made the second. So we are, is there any discussion?
No.
If there's no discussion, we can consider this closed.
It's at 7:35. Yeah, call the vote.
We're going to call a vote? Call.
Mayor Hernandez,
Yes.
Judge B. Mateo.
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yes, ma'am.
Trustee Nevares,
Yes.
Marshall Escarate,
Yes.
Ms. Ellis. Yes. Ms. Garcia,
Yes.
Mr. Heinrich,
Yes.
Chairperson, the roll call is 7 yes.
All right, thank you.
We take a really quick break.
Are we adjourned?
No, we're not
Not yet.
adjourned.
We're not there. Extending daytime.
Okay, can we take a a 5-minute break.
You can call it recess.
We can call a recess for 5 minutes. So
Mayor,
it is 7:36. We'll reconvene at 7:41, please.
Yes, sir. That is your copy.
really?
Oh, yeah. I actually hired Matt Holden in the academic side of the house. I hired Matt to teach. And, then I let
Goodbye. She's the Nancy Pelosi.
yeah, I go that long hallway.
She's a bottom, really.
Say, I
And
time
I'll tell you what.
Bye, Grandma.
So the firm order that I was these.
And I hear he's fully retired. I haven't seen him for 6 years, so.
We got two dog for bed seating.
You too, Grandma. We'll see you the next time.
Hey, somebody got that phone. I'm gonna guess it's a girl.
I think it's a recording.
Sorry.
Oh, yeah, it's more.
You want me to pause it? Or?
No, yeah, because it's all still, this first she's recording it for 15 minutes.
Okay.
So we have, because we have that. So.
Alex. It's nice to meet you. Yes, sir. He's good to see you.
Right across.
How are you?
Yeah, how are you?
You are.
Wow.
See you. Are you okay?
All right. Except for the fact that I might lose my job, but okay. Hopefully.
I
Or
mean,
maybe the town can put me somewhere else since they open so many,
seriously, you're so talented. You're so
many
good at what you
positions
do.
all the time.
Yeah. You're so good at what you do. I wouldn't worry a bit about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you need references, it's improvement. Yeah, oh, for sure.
I might reach out.
Good, good, yeah, include, please, yeah. We still haven't sold it, right?
I think so.
It's like that kind of wall.
When I contacted Gwen, I already broke this one too. I'll send
Okay,
you the
so
other
let me just get it here right now, it's 575.
You know, I'm looking at it.
915. 61, yeah.
Yes, yeah, I don't have it.
Okay, that's me, so, I know I've got you on my phone, but yeah. Yes, me, yeah, please, absolutely.
Thank you.
You stay in touch with Donnie at all?
No.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
why, last week, kept pushing my window. So, oh, well, I was gonna spend the mayor to come back. If I don't come back, then they'll close the court. So I'm like, but I'm here, and you actually, because I'm here. So how is that gonna work?
Yeah.
It's like, so what's the problem? Is it the court? Is it the administrator? Is it the judge? What is it?
Yeah.
Because with all these, what are they trying to get rid of?
It's not, I don't take this as that at all. It's just like, does this still make sense?
Yeah,
Is there a
see, I
better
mean,
way?
he understands, because might not know the specifics of why.
Oh, I got you.
But why would they go in the court?
I got you.
So that's where I took the person was like,
What's the
you know,
message
like,
here,
well,
right?
he didn't go leave on good terms, you know,
Yeah.
he had to leave because it was not.
I don't think I'm there.
And it's not just
I wasn't
number wife.
long time ago. Now I'm just retired.
Right. Understood.
So we'll see how it goes. Yes. Maybe. Or is there-
Recess, please.
coming to this side, usually I just stop at the one.
I know where I'm supposed to sit.
No, you're perfectly fine.
Okay, it's 7:41. We are reconvening. I'm not the public hearing, but the meeting of the committee. So the next item on the agenda is number 6. Action and consideration, new business approval, any action recommendation that may arise from the public hearing. So do I call for a motion or just?
Mr. Chair, I would honestly think that we've had 2 hours or 2.5 hours now, almost 3 of a little bit of deliberation back and forth. It's a lot of information to digest, a lot of things to take into consideration, and everybody to review information. Plus, I think that there's some questions that we can also potentially have some follow-up on.
All right.
So I would like to move that we postpone any approval of any recommendation to a future date. And I know that everybody's available next Tuesday for the form that I had sent out. So
that's the 17th.
Yes.
So there's a motion to postpone until the next meeting would be on June 17th. So I need a second.
Second.
So I have a motion by the mayor, a second by Ms. Ellis.
I have a quick question. Weren't we supposed to come back to recess and vote back in?
we did.
We did?
Yes.
Okay. Thanks.
So there's a motion on the floor. Is there any discussion relating to postponing the meeting?
So we're postponing the meeting till next Tuesday?
Yes,
17.
the 17th.
So the goal then would be to do what next Tuesday?
Well, we have the action item number 6 to consider. I think the mayor making the motion, there's been a lot of information we need to process. And if there's any follow-up information, perhaps we could have that.
Just
Well, and I think-
sorry, clarification. How does that conversation happen? Is it just kind of a freewheeling conversation among the committee members, or how do we do that?
And Mr. Young, you can always chime in, but I think
That's an open meeting too, right?
Yes, and this is one of those hybrid scenarios too, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, I apologize. We're subject to the Open Meetings Act by virtue of the delegation of authority, but this is also one of, like, you are functioning in the capacity of providing a recommendation to the Board of Trustees at the end of the day. So we don't necessarily have to follow all the same formalities necessarily. And so if there are questions that within an email chain that need to have things fleshed out before next Monday or next Tuesday, then I believe that would be all right.
Would it be all right to have conversations outside of a public meeting? I don't know about that.
I would recommend against it more out of the appearance of impropriety as opposed to a strict application of the Open Meetings Act, because it doesn't address that. When you have a advisory committee set up, there's provisions for legislative advisory committees, but not for sub entities like this that are just serving. They're not even an appointed board to make a decision like a planning and zoning commission. So just in the sense of trying to, I guess. So my recommendation would be, if it's a kind of a correspondence communication, to try and come to a consensus on the process and what you want to do and accomplish at the next meeting, but to leave the substantive communication out of that, your impressions and where you may want to go.
we can set that as part of discussion right now in an open setting. I think that's.
I mean, I'd rather have the transparency than.
Yeah.
Ms. Ellis?
Well, I was just gonna ask if this kind of line of thinking is appropriate, which is, and I won't be the one, I'm just gonna tell you, that somebody on this committee would come forward with a motion to start, I'm trying to address Fred's concern, which is mine as well, a proposal. Somebody needs to have something that they believe in and support and put it on the table.
Right.
And then the chair would open that to discussion, and we would have that freewheeling discussion about the proposal that's on the table, and then according to Robert's rules, we'd either
Yeah.
vote on it and approve it, or we would
Yeah.
turn it down, or we would table it, or we would have a
Motion
amendment, and yeah, and the normal course of events, but that discussion would be in response to some kind of proposal.
Well, and what it would be in look like is in our agenda that we have present. I mean, we wouldn't have 3 in there. The agenda where 5 is for public hearing, that would be
So you're saying we would
related
have
to,
another public hearing?
not public hearing, just discussion. It would be
Oh.
discussion amongst the committee members.
Of what we heard.
What you heard, your feelings, if you have,
Okay, you're
if
saying
you
on the
have
agenda.
potential recommendations, and then that would be followed by action that comes out of that discussion.
So
Follow through with
you
that.
would have a new
So you
notice
would
of
do
the,
discussion before having a proposal on
yes.
Correct.
So
Yeah,
there'd
now
be-
that we have further discussion, because I mean, we can always discuss, and if we feel that there's more discussion that needs to happen all the way around, we can discuss and discuss and discuss. There doesn't have to necessarily be action that comes
I think that
immediately.
makes a lot of sense, and I'd like to see the agenda set up that way.
And also the public notice for the meeting and the agenda to call for a discussion item only, and then having it proceed from there.
What I would like from members of the committee, if you would, based upon the information that was given tonight, if there's more targeted information that you would like gathered to have presented or given out or part of the agenda during the next meeting, please let me know, or let's let Gloria know. More than anything, if you don't have that tonight. So like one of the things that's a takeaway that I'm going to dive into specifically is the information on those cases that are being absorbed or would have the potential to be absorbed through magistrate court, and those that we would still be responsible for as far as it pertains to attorney's fees. So that was a large part of discussion from this evening. So I'll find out more information on that specifically. And then looking at those costs that are associated between all the different cases and what would be retained through all of that. And then probably having more information on the potential of what Anthony's codes look like, or code looks like in general for the Planning and Zoning Commission hearing cases. So that might be another viable option. So that's what I'll be personally going into on some things, but that's why I say if you want further information, please let me know what that is, and I'll pull that information for you. So I know.
I'm more worried about the budget wise. We need to get more accurate numbers on there. So someone needs to meet with Ramona to make those numbers then match, because they're not matching. And I've said that several times, and that's a huge factor, especially when the court's getting money from our reserves. So that's another huge factor. Are we really losing that kind of money, or we're not? So that's a big factor on it too. We do need to get those budget numbers more closer to it. Like I get the whole, you're saying, which I totally agree on it, but we do gotta get those budget numbers.
I know we're outside the public hearing. Do I get to ask a question of somebody in the audience?
Yes.
Ramona, do you know of all the fines that get implemented by the court or levied by the court, how much gets collected and how much doesn't get, how much goes uncollected?
You mean per case? Or
No,
like,
just in general, like over the course of a year, how much,
I wouldn't know, like.
I'm just wondering how much
What's the
revenue.
accounts receivables, right?
Yeah, there you go.
Well, I would have to see like the end of year, fiscal year number.
Since we have the numbers for the last 3 years, it'd be great to get those numbers from same country, the ARs. Yeah. Yeah,
we
how
gotta
much
get
gets
what the
collected
court
and how
has and
much
what they
does,
have.
pardon me?
We gotta get what the court has and what the town has and compare them. They won't match.
Yeah.
Just in terms of structuring that discussion, one of the questions that you can think about that I like to ask of each of the people on the commission is, what specifically do you see as the benefits of staying? The 3 options, basically, the split, the stay, the go, and what are the negatives of each of those? And I think those who have testified have given us some of that already. But I think each of those, for me, it's put in a chart, okay, what do we really think they are, and we've gone through terms. And the information that you're getting will help us. Again, I'm the least involved in the CIA governance, is a lot of issues that may exist in the city with your marshal's office and what they're doing, and with the courts and the bookkeeping and all that. But I don't think those are hugely impactful. Maybe I'm wrong. You can tell me at the next thing, but hugely impactful in terms of the positive and the negatives of really the only issue for this committee, as I understand it, which is what is our going to your specific recommendation about keep the court as is, go to the magistrate system, come up with something.
That's ultimately what the review is. Yeah.
So is there any other discussion? We still have a motion to postpone, so with a second.
Well, I think that, is there any other information that needs,
Yes.
that the committee would want gathered?
I think we should get with Fernando Macias as a DA and ask him, can he handle the town of Macias? Court cases. Are they gonna be able to? I mean, even if we pass it or not pass it, you know, like I get it, they're gonna have to, you know, they're gonna have to, but what are their thoughts and opinions on it? Are they gonna be able to? You know, I would wanna know.
If you have that conversation, you should have it with the PD's office too.
Right. Right. And if they do serve the part of Macias, are we gonna get billed from the county? From it, you know, like, we need to know, you know.
Well, that's part of the billing and the
Right.
associated fees, so.
Right.
I see the town's council shaking his head no.
If the DA's office takes a case for the purpose of prosecuting it, that's within their budgetary framework. Nobody gets billed for the operations of the DA. Same with the PDs. It's within their budgetary grants from the state.
But we're throwing our town with them, so that's gonna probably throw them off their budget too. That's why I'm asking. I think we should ask them, you know, just out of curiosity, can they handle the town of Macias as well if we go down there? Because they're already budgeted to what they have for a year. Do you know what I'm saying?
For this exact year, the reality is they will, like every governmental unit, lobby their funding source for additional funding based on the number of cases. And so that's really within their purview, but the DA's office doesn't know how many crimes are gonna be brought to them in a given year. They do their best to budget.
And for every DA's office and PD's office, they're probably overloaded already.
And at the end of
We're throwing
the,
our town on top of it.
and at the end of the day, the statute doesn't, if their opinion and their burdens or whatever had any impact on this process, the statute would have laid that out. It's the Supreme Court that says this should go forward or not.
I still would ask them.
It would be interesting, at least to me, is the ordinance that got passed. You mentioned TRC, not TRC, Elephant Butte and
Williamsburg.
Williamsburg. Can we see what the ordinance looked like?
Absolutely. I think I may have sent it here under the minutes. It's not in this packet.
Be great to see what that.
I can get both of those over and probably even find TRCs as well, so you'll have three.
Can you get Raton too? The town of Raton? They went through this process. They didn't pass it.
Well, then I wouldn't be able to get it because it's not an ordinance.
Can we see why? Well, I can pull it up and ask them why theirs didn't pass. They didn't get passed. So we're hearing cases of why they got passed, but we're not hearing the ones that haven't got passed. So let's balance this again. Let's do this balance thing. Let's get some that have gone through the process and they didn't pass, and why those didn't pass. Does that make sense? So I know Raton tried to go through this pass and they did not pass. So I'll ask them why theirs didn't get passed. Curious.
Okay, are there any other items to discuss from the committee?
No, I would just say that if you have any other questions or information that members of the committee that you want to have followed up specifically on this, just so that we do not create a rolling quorum, please make sure that you send that to Gloria specifically. Her email address is clerktreasurer@messiann.gov. So I'll make sure that you all have that. And she's the one that did send that initial notice email out to you, and we'll work on that agenda and get that posted probably tomorrow or Thursday at the very latest, and have that ready to go.
Will the Tuesday meeting be at 5, like tonight?
Yes.
I'll be coming back from Albuquerque.
That's the plan, yes, sir.
You make it back in time?
All right.
Okay, well, thank you. And yes, is that it? So we can move on to the vote. So Gloria, we go.
Marshall Escalante,
Yes.
Judge Di Matteo,
Yes. Yes.
Garcia,
Yes, so we're making it the meeting on the 17th, right?
The postpone.
Postpone it to the 17th? Yes. Just my clarification.
Trustee Nevades,
Yes.
Mr. Heinrich,
Yes.
Ms. Ellis. Yes. Mayor Hernandez,
Yes.
Chairperson, the roll call is 7 yeses.
Okay, so we have the meeting date for the next meeting and a time. So the next item is the adjournment.
Motion adjourned.
Second.
Okay, no discussion. We're considered adjourned. Thank you. Thank you all for your participation this evening.